Good evening to our regularly scheduled board meeting for February 24th. It's just a little after 7 o'clock. I'd ask the clerk to please take the roll call.
Trustee Bachner.
Here.
Trustee Kargi.
Here.
Trustee Vasquez.
Here.
Trustee Brennan.
Here.
Trustee Hennick.
Here.
Trustee O'Connell.
Here.
President Aducey.
Here. Okay, if I can all ask you to please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, so it looks like we have all the citizens' testimony for the Deer Task Force. So I'm going to go ahead and ask y'all to talk now. So if I can ask Marta to come to the podium and. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Marta Kosber, 1235 Monroe Avenue.
Pull the microphone down.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure,
Thanks.
sure. Marta Kosber, 1235 Monroe Avenue. And before I have my few words, if I may, Annie Wallace is away on a business trip and asked that I read her comments. So I'll start with those.
Sure.
Okay. I am writing to express my concern about the method by which the Community Task Force to address the deer population was selected. Although I have been an outspoken proponent of ensuring that proper data are collected and methods of addressing deer concerns enacted, such that culling is only the solution of last resort, I did not myself apply to be on the task force. However, I was shocked and disheartened to learn that none of the community members who voluntarily did a lot of great work in filling the void of data collection left by the village in its initial rush to commence a cull, and who did apply to the task force, were not selected to be members. I was doubly shocked to learn that this selection was apparently handled unilaterally by the village president without giving the other trustees an opportunity to review the applications and weigh in on the selections. The applications of the selected members evidence some encouraging folks who seem interested in collecting facts and following the data where it leads. But there are also several selected members who expressly stated that they believe the deer population to be a problem purely based on anecdotal observation or damage to their landscaping, and not one selected member who states that they do not believe there is a problem that justifies culling. This is hardly the balanced task force that gives me confidence that anything other than the foregone objective will be the outcome here. I know everyone is wary of the deer management issues and the way they've been drawn out, but I would suggest that the only reason they have been so drawn out is because of the repeated obstruction of a data-driven process, inclusive of all the perspectives of the village, in service of a singular goal: to start killing deer as quickly as possible. I remain bewildered by this obsession and have been repeatedly awestruck at the blatant attempts, of which this is the latest, to force the foregone decision to cull the deer. This is my first experience with village government. This has left me utterly disillusioned with the entire process and the lack of adherence to logic, data, or the democratic process. I expected better of our village. Annie Wallace. And now me. Well, Kathy, you've proved your point. By not allowing anyone but yourself to review applications and then select your task force, not a village task force, you've showed everyone that you're going to get your way no matter what. Sadly, it has now become not only an issue of culling the deer, but of the governance of our village. As our country stands divided by a leadership that promotes bullying, intimidation, and total allegiance at all costs to get the job done, it is the responsibility of our local governments to show fairness in governance. Part of your job is to bring people together instead of causing more divisions. At your swearing in, outgoing President John Regas advised you to, and I quote, "Listen, learn, and participate with passion, but remain open to all sides of an issue. Be cautious and get all the facts from people you know who know the information. Do your homework." I'm asking you to really let that sink in and ask yourself if you've done your homework. If you are truly open to all sides of this issue. Your actions show that you are not. And for those who are concerned about this issue not moving forward, if things are done right in the first time, they get done a lot faster. I ask that everyone take a moment to just reflect. Be honest, have morals, show empathy, value integrity, be good humans. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Bob Zimmerman?
Good evening. The last time I spoke with you, I think, was January 13th. I remember that date well because I had to scoot out of here after pretty much the beginning of the meeting because we had to take our son back to Rush. He had had a liver transplant. It failed at the end of that week. So I wasn't able to hear the discussions that occurred at the board level about appointing the task force. So what I've learned about it has been through reading what I can when I can and listening to the tape when I can do that and reading the correspondence that's come out lately. And by the way, our son's still in the ICU. This is a long process when you get 2 of those liver transplants in a row. My concern, based on what I read and what I heard, is that we're supposed to be finding out facts. The people that presented the case that I think forced you to think about facts, none of those folk were put on this task force or committee. I didn't apply because I knew I wouldn't have time for it, but had I applied, I'm sure I would not have been picked. A lot of work went into the research to find out what's going on in here. How can we best come up with an outcome that's going to satisfy everybody? My own personal research at the time was, as I think some of you remember, was attacking the Forest Preserve District. I wasn't very kind to them. And I can go off on that if you want me to. But what I'm asking each one of the members of this committee, if this sticks, is be open-minded. I know 2 of you have specifically said there are too many deer and they're eating the landscaping. And Kathy, you had told this group, you told this village that the chowing down on landscaping would never be the basis of a call. Those 2 people should have been disqualified in the very beginning. Just as anybody should have been disqualified who came out and said, I am so opposed to any killing of any of these beasts. They are God's creatures and they belong in the woods. That attitude also should not have been welcome on this committee. And I think, Rez, you said at one point, a balance. And that's what you're looking for, a balance. But that doesn't mean I'm against it or I'm for it. But a balance is I'm looking for facts so that we can present them to all of you to make a decision of what to do next year. And that's what I hope happens. That's what I fear is not going to happen based upon the constituency of this committee that I've seen. Now, just as a little side for all of you, and by the way, I've also noticed that when we give our little talks, nobody takes notes. So I hope you have great memories. But if you'll take a look at the East Lansing, Michigan last week, the board, the city council there, voted 3-2 for a call. And what I read about it sounded very much like us. But the biggest difference is the Department of Agriculture, Animal Services is going to do the call for $6,000, which might go to $20,000. Whereas you were told $40,000 by the Forest Preserve District. So some of your homework ought to be, if you decide to do a call or engage in some sort of a wildlife management program that involves the Department of Agriculture, get into that price, because as a taxpayer, I don't want to see us paying triple what East Lansing, Michigan is paying for the same outcome. So I'm just asking the members of this committee, this task force, go into it to analyze facts. Find out what's the right thing to do And remember the one thing I said on January 13th, pointing to each one of you without pointing, is don't tear us apart. And I'm just fearful that that could be an outcome of a biased committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Vanker, 1234 Monroe Avenue. I want to express my concern about the proposed Deer Management Committee. Based upon the limited information that has been made available, I'm sorry to say that it is clear that the proposed committee is not fairly balanced. I do not feel that it is representative of the community as a whole or the differing views of many who have taken the time to attend these meetings and express their views. I do want to be clear that my concerns are not motivated by the fact that I was not selected for the committee. Rather, my concern is motivated by the fact that the proposed committee composition seems designed to achieve the result that the village administration has been pursuing for years: to cull the deer, and not to bring together all viewpoints and all relevant information in arriving at an approach to deer conflict management. As stated by Respicio Vasquez at the January 13th board meeting, and I quote, "We will not have a credible result if the committee is not set up fairly," end quote. I believe that this requires that the committee include a representative mix of open-minded people representing all different viewpoints, as well as people who are plainly neutral. I believe that this also requires people who are willing to cooperate by working hard together to gather and evaluate information, challenge their own predispositions, follow the advice of experts who have said they will volunteer to help the committee, sincerely consider alternative approaches to the issues, and work with residents to reduce deer conflicts. Unfortunately, I do not believe the proposed committee meets these criteria, and I am sorry to say that I feel this is because the village president has not followed the approach that she said she would follow in selecting proposed committee members. In response to reservations that some trustees expressed about authorizing President Ducey to appoint members of the committee, Kathy made a public pledge and promise, and I quote, "We will all, as a group, I'll talk to all of you guys. I will pick whatever names you think are right, and then we will ratify it. It's not going to be that complicated." Can I repeat part of that? Kathy said, "I will pick whatever names you think are right, and then we will ratify it. It's not going to be that complicated." That's January 13th, this board meeting, on the audio. Unfortunately, a very different approach was taken. Instead of consulting you about all applicants, our village president unilaterally selected and published an unbalanced committee without even providing you with the applications submitted by residents who Kathy chose to exclude from the committee. It is also my understanding that some trustees have been told that it is not appropriate for the trustees even to see all the applications. That is contrary to President Ducey's representation to you and the community. There are several resulting problems with the proposed committee. 6 of the 11 residents proposed, a majority of the committee, are from a 3-block area nearest the forest preserve, and all have expressed on their applications dissatisfaction with deer in the community for various reasons. It is reasonable to suppose that all are predisposed to favor culling the deer. For example, one applicant stated that the deer population is out of control. Another has echoed that we have an overabundant deer population. Still, another has stated that damage to landscaping from deer represents an unfair form of double taxation, suggesting that it is the responsibility of the village to keep deer from damaging his landscaping and out of the village by whatever means are necessary. In pointing this out, I do want to be clear about one thing. I'm not arguing that any one of these residents individually does not belong on the committee or that their concerns should be ignored. Although I will say that our village president did earlier write to me that damage to landscaping would never be reason to cull deer. What I am saying is that to propose that such a group from a tiny section of town comprised a majority of the committee really mocks the idea of a committee that is representative of the whole village and all viewpoints. This problem is compounded by the fact that all applicants who may have expressed the view that they want the village to attempt non-lethal approaches to deer management have been excluded from the proposed committee. They have been excluded despite the fact that this is a view that has been expressed by many residents. A reading of the applications of those proposed for the committee fairly suggests that only 4 of the residents come to the task without bias, and there is not a single selected applicant who has expressed the view that we should attempt non-lethal solutions before resorting to killing deer. If people who appear to think that the deer should be culled because they are out of control and a hazard to us all, then surely some with a different opinion also should be included. In addition, there are only 3 proposed committee members who do not live within 3 blocks of the forest preserve, and large areas of the village are completely unrepresented. All village residents of all viewpoints have a valid interest in managing wildlife and spending potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of scarce village funds. This is especially true given that we already lack the money needed to fund objectives of the village comprehensive plan. I think that it should be unacceptable, particularly given the promise that our village president made to you and the public, that she is asking you to approve an unbalanced committee. And I strongly suspect that a review of all the applications would confirm what is apparent. A far better and more balanced committee can and should be selected. I do not know whether the right answer is to change certain proposed members of the committee or to expand the committee to ensure that it is balanced. I do know that the committee should not be loaded the way it is now to achieve the outcome, killing large numbers of deer, that the village administration has been determined to achieve from the outset of this public process, and for years before, and without any broad community input. I know that the desired timetable for moving forward is short, but the most important thing is to get it done right. Several trustees have acted to learn the truth and to try to put in place a process that will produce a good result and community acceptance. Sadly, that has not been as easy as it should have been. President Ducey, all on her own, has made this process flawed, difficult, and divisive. But please do not give up now. You can and should take action to produce a truly balanced deer management committee that will enjoy the confidence of the whole community. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Frank?
Good evening. My name is Frank Vanker, and I reside at 1234 Monroe. It is my understanding that some trustees may have been told that the January 27 Deer Management Committee resolution somehow invalidates the very specific representations about the creation of the committee made by President Ducey at the January 13 public meeting. In my view, there can be no basis for such a claim. First, a resolution authorizing the village president to appoint committee members with the advice and consent of the trustees is not contrary to the public pledge that she made on January 13. That pledge to share information, genuinely seek the advice of the trustees, and appoint committee members that the trustees want is not inconsistent with authorizing the president to appoint members subject to the advice and consent of the trustees. And the resolution, in any event, clearly empowers the trustees to withhold their consent because this was not done. Second, and perhaps most importantly, any suggestion that the resolution somehow silently revoked the representations that were made amounts to an argument that representations by our village president should not be relied upon unless they are reduced to writing in a resolution. I sincerely hope nobody thinks we should operate that way as a community government. For these reasons and others, I was dismayed to learn that the trustees were not provided all applications or allowed any input before nominees were chosen and announced. I also must say that I am much more than dismayed to learn that more than one of the trustees who asked to see all the applications apparently was told that they are not entitled to that information and it would be somehow inappropriate for them to see it. That should be completely unacceptable as a way to run our local government. I claim no expertise in municipal law, but it certainly seems to me that independent of any resolution or appointment authority, the trustees must be allowed to review village records, including responses to public requests for committee applications. This situation does not seem to me to be at all analogous to executive appointments, to judgeships, or other similar positions where matters of executive privilege and constitutional separation of powers may be involved. The appointment authority for the committees in our village is, I believe, a matter within the authority of the trustees, and it can be conditioned by them, limited, or revoked by them as they see fit. As importantly, I also believe that it is untrue to suggest that trustees have been denied the right to review all applications in the past. I know of at least one former trustee who routinely requested and received all applications for appointment to village committees in order to discharge the advice and consent role as she felt duty-bound to do. If it really is now the position of the president of our village or our village lawyers that the trustees are not allowed to see committee applications, I would be interested to see what authority that is based on. I also believe that the trustees should reclaim control of the village committees by revoking the president's appointment authority for all committees right here and right now, if that is the position of the president. The fact that the village administration has sought to shut down the flow of information to the trustees strongly suggests to me and others that the unbalanced committee that has been put forward is not an accident or an oversight, and it did not happen because a committee of persons with balanced viewpoints, or at least a majority neutral committee, could not be formed from the qualified applicants. And I want to stress here that the issue is not just balance in terms of where proposed committee members reside. While it may be relevant to seek geographical balance, it is even more important to achieve a balance of viewpoints. I think that as trustees, you should be deeply troubled about how this is unfolding. You should also be concerned that interested residents now have very good reason to believe that the committee selection process has been used to minimize any chance that the committee will get in the way of the long desired and expressly stated goal of the village administration to cull the deer. For almost a year now, the efforts of the village administration to move forward with deer culling have been characterized by a failure, for whatever reasons, to provide the trustees and the public with complete and accurate information needed for sound decision making. Sadly, that failure clearly seems to be ongoing. And now the credibility of the Deer Management Committee that so many fought to see established is at risk of being destroyed before the work of the committee even gets underway. That should not be allowed to happen. To the trustees, let me echo my wife, Mary, and just say, please don't throw up your hands now. I know that you are frustrated by how long this process has taken, and I suspect that some of you are frustrated by how difficult it has been at times to get the relevant information from those whose duty it is to facilitate your decision making. But please do not let that cause you to give up trying to get it right. Public confidence in this whole process, which I believe is already badly shaken among many who have been watching it, depends upon you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Askell?
Good evening. My name is Oscar Kosbur. I live at 1235 Monroe Avenue. I, like my colleagues, have several specific concerns about the process that was used by Village President Kathy Aducci for choosing committee members for the Deer Management Committee Task Force. The process seems to be skewed in such a way as to achieve our village president's goal of simply culling deer as the only solution to coexistence with these deer. Let me point out a few points. One of the key recommendations of the IDNR, Cornell University, Humane Society, and others in the formation of a community task force is that the committee be equally representative of the community. That clearly has not been done here, as you've heard. So my question is, why are the majority of the committee members clustered in a small northwest corner of River Forest? Except for a few members scattered throughout mostly the southern portion of River Forest, there are no committee members from most of River Forest, and in particular, the vast northeast corner of River Forest. Even more important than questions of geographic diversity, though, is the matter of diversity of opinion, of viewpoint. Why are the views of most River Forest residents and most of the River Forest not represented by committee members? Also, how many of these committee members in that small, clustered geographic area to the northeast or northwest have been lobbying for years to kill the deer as the only solution? That'd be a good question to answer. Next point. During the last board meeting, many trustees expressed that the committee should be equally comprised of village members of opposing viewpoints. And most importantly, according to the trustees, these committee members should be willing to listen to various opinions, options, before coming to any kind of conclusion. So my question now is, why is there a selected committee member who has clearly and openly stated that that applicant is very reluctant to listen or to change opinion? Next, as Mary Vanker and Bob Zimmerman and others have pointed out, President Aducci stated in writing that landscaping issues, quote, would never be the reason for killing deer, end quote. And that's in writing. Mm-hmm. So my question is, why is the most commonly expressed concern of these are the selected applicants to the committee, that deer are destroying their landscaping? Another point and recommendation by the IDNR, Cornell University, Humane Society, and others is that any approach should be based on good quality, reputable data and information gathered about the situation and also attitudes surveyed from all village residents. Another question, why is it so apparent that all of the residents who have spent many long hours collecting and sharing data with all of you have been excluded by Village President Aducci from the committee? These are the very people who have shown a willingness to work hard to formulate data-based recommendations for deer management suggested by various expert sources that I've named before. Next point. The IDNR representative has volunteered time to help guide the committee task force. Very great recommendation, or very great volunteer time. Another question comes out of this. Given that the recommendations are already being ignored, why would the IDNR representative not consider this a waste of time and just give up on everybody here? In conclusion, this issue has turned out to be more than just a deer management issue. It is also now an issue of how we operate as a community and how it is governed. Trustees, and I ask the trustees, is this the kind of authoritative, non-transparent governance you want from the village president? Trustees, you have options. You have the right to carefully review all of the 30 applicants for the committee. You have the right and the obligation to insist upon a committee that will do right by the village. I thank you for your attention, and I hope you do the right thing.
Thank you. Okay, that ends any of the public comments. So, thank you. I will now move to our our elected official comments and announcements. So maybe we'll start with Trustee Bachner.
Sure. So I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. And as we begin our meeting, we are mindful that we hold these meetings on land that was once and still inhabited by Indigenous people, including the Ojibwa, the Chippewa, Menominee, Potawatomi nations, and more. And we remember our nation's history and honor the Native people as stewards of this land that was colonized, and that River Forest continues to be a place many people from diverse backgrounds live and gather. I want to talk a little bit about the census. Surprise, surprise. And hopefully everybody in this room received a bag of materials that show Census 20. We really need everyone to get out and tell your families to complete the census, whether it's in River Forest or elsewhere across the country and across Illinois. The team, the village administration, John Pape and Sarah and others have been great about putting these materials together, getting grants from the Illinois state funding to produce the materials. And so you see things like our River Forest 2020, Be Counted is our topic. Here is our tagline for this, and some information about how the Census Bureau is taking into consideration the privacy. So they are very much on top of that and protecting answers that people are giving during the census. And it is strictly confidential. Each person who works on census, whether they are door knockers to people who are working in the offices, take an oath for life, punishable by something like $250,000, years in jail, to not talk about, not do anything with that private data. And the other data, as you've probably have heard me talk about, that's not identifiable, means so much to the community in understanding who lives, works, and uses the area, what kind of services that we need. So hopefully everybody enjoys the materials, and Census Day is April 1st. You'll be getting something in the mail a few weeks beforehand, so it's coming right up. You might see something in the mail to say, as a reminder, go ahead and fill out your census, fill it out online or on the phone. Some people might be getting something in the mail, and if you fill it out quickly, nobody comes to your door. These people are tenacious. They want the information. So if you fill it out completely, you don't get bothered by people coming to your door. So I think that's always great thing to not have to worry about. And please just let everybody in your circles know to complete the census. And if they have any questions at all, they can go to our village website. We've got information about it. John, do we have a video?
Yes, we do. Yeah. Did you know about the video?
So if you want to play the
Wait,
video,
did you know about the? Yes.
he told me about it today.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Let's go ahead and
do you want to do it now?
I think that'd be a good time.
Okay.
This video is from Forefront, and it is from the Get Counted Illinois, talking about why it's important for the state of Illinois.
Right. Part of my kind of discussion was going to say that I went to a mayor's caucus on Friday. Mayor Lightfoot was the keynote speaker, and they had this up. So it was
Wonderful.
really good. It's just a minute and a half. Go ahead. Thanks.
And so as he's working on that, other things that you might see throughout the village are banners that say "Be Counted, River Forest, Illinois," River Forest, to remind people around schools and our public areas. We also have these yard signs.
Yeah. Good.
These are red that are coming directly from the census. And Bob, would you mind? Those are the River Forest ones. So we would love anybody who wants to take one of these for their home to put in a request. You can request from the village directly or from me or any of the trustees. We'll get it to you to make sure that everybody knows about this. Okay.
Every 10 years, we get one shot, just one shot, to get counted.
So communities across Illinois get what they need to succeed.
For things like healthcare, childcare,
new roads, access to housing.
in Illinois, no matter who you are or where you're from,
asegúrate hacerte contar en el censo del 2020.
Why be counted? Because the government uses the census to decide how much money the state needs.
For every person who doesn't get counted, we lose $1,400 a year coming to our state.
Why be counted? In 1950, Illinois had 24 representatives in Congress. Right now, we have 18.
And we'll lose more in Congress if we aren't all counted in 2020.
Fewer representatives means less support in Washington, D.C.
Everyone needs to be counted.
Everyone.
Children, grandparents,
Renters,
Folks just getting by. Me.
and you.
It's just 9 questions, and you can complete it online, by mail or over the phone.
Everyone matters.
Everyone counts.
visit 2020census.gov and be counted.
It's a great one.
Yep.
Great.
So they said it better than I did.
Yeah.
But so and you will see activities going around the River Forest area. Thank you to all the participants of the Complete Count Committee for River Forest. We've had so many wonderful, engaged citizens and residents. I see a few of them in the space tonight, and hopefully you're just getting the word out about this. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Erica. Tom?
I have nothing.
Okay. Russ?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay. Kate?
Just 2 things. One, I attended the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Environmental Committee meeting with Chairperson Julie Moeller for the Sustainability Commission on the 18th, and that was a really well-organized meeting with lots of stakeholders from every aspect of the recycling spectrum. And just 2 quick points I wanted to share that I learned at that meeting. One is that ACRs, which are average commodity revenues, that's the revenues from recycling, are way down. You may have known this from reading in the press. And they've been trending that way for some time, and waste haulers have been absorbing those costs, but they're going to not be able to keep absorbing those costs, and they're going to be paying, or they're going to be passing those costs onto the municipalities, and municipalities are going to be passing them on to residents. And I think that our waste hauler contract is up for renewal soon. waste haulers used to get paid for these recyclables. Now they have to pay the facilities to take them. They and municipalities are having to get creative about how to continue to offer services that we want as residents at reasonable rates. And then the second point is that that I learned is that a lot of the smaller waste haulers are being eaten up by the larger conglomerates. There's a lot of consolidation in the marketplace, and it's becoming more and more difficult for our waste haulers to be creative and nimble, reacting to what the residents want. We're still lucky right now to have Strom, which is one of the very few remaining independent waste haulers that continues to offer us a unique service in the white glove service. So that's it for that. And then also I wanted to mention that I did attend the West Central Municipal Conference Legislative Breakfast with Rez and Greg and Eric on Saturday, February 8th. There were lots of politicians. There were lots of presentations, lots of clapping, and I did pick up this one little gem for Kathy.
I have one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Oh, now you got two. Front and back.
Yeah. Maybe I should send that out there to the audience.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Katie?
I would just like to say hello to everyone. Good evening. And for our folks who are tuning in from home or listening after the fact, I'd like to reiterate a suggestion reminder from one of our ZBA commissioners. He shared at the last meeting I listened to that when he listened to the last meeting he missed, that there were times that it was hard to hear people if we're not talking into our microphones or have them on. So to help everyone who's going to be listening after the fact, if we can kind of remind ourselves and maybe even give a little reminder to our commissions as well to make sure that people are speaking into the microphone so everyone can hear. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That's a great suggestion.
I've got nothing.
Okay, very good.
But I turned my microphone out.
All right. I only have two things actually. The Mayor's Caucus that I attended on Friday. Like I said, Mayor Lightfoot was the keynote speaker, and of course her big issues are some of ours. Pension reform, because the pension costs are out of control, as we all know. It's eating our revenue at rates that we can't tax at, or we can't find revenue for. So that's a big issue. It's a constitutional issue that needs to be addressed. Of course, her other issue, which is not really our issue, that's casinos. And then the third was a good presentation on cannabis and some of the kind of law enforcement suggestions on cannabis. So it was a nice update on the things that the village should be, villages or municipalities should be concerned about on enforcing the cannabis law. So it was quite good. And then today I participated in a press conference with Pezo that was reinforcing our commitment to our welcoming resolution and our immigrants, and to keeping that promise of inclusion and welcoming for all of our immigrants here in Village of River Forest. So I was with Congressman Chuy Garcia and other state officials that stand behind all of this, and Pezo in terms of their commitment to immigration and keeping our immigrants safe and welcomed. So it was a good press conference. So that's all I have. We'll go ahead on to the consent agenda. If I could get a motion and a second to move the consent agenda. What do we got here?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through J.
I'll second.
Do you have an agenda? Okay. You have a second? I thought I had one here. Sorry. Okay, we'll go ahead and any discussions, questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to.
I swear I put one on your.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, it's all right. Okay.
Kathleen, do you need it?
Oh
no, I've got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that's fine. I'll find it.
Consent agenda, item A, regular village board meeting minutes, January 27th, 2020. B, committee of the whole meeting minutes, January 27th, 2020. C, fiscal year 2020 budget amendment for the capital improvement fund for the River Forest Public Library ordinance. D, declaration of surplus property and authorization of sale by internet auction of 2 brush chippers ordinance. E, Planet Green letter of commitment initiative in pursuing 100% renewable energy. F, monthly department reports. G, monthly performance measurement report. H, financial report January 2020. I, accounts payable January 2020, $1,646,570.18. J, village administrator's report. Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Kargi.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, very good. And I know, Julie, you'll be mentioning the Planet Green letter, which I think is fantastic for our community. So thank you for spearheading that. Item number 6, consent items for separate consideration. If I can get a motion and a second to vote on this separate consideration. Consent agenda.
Approve payment from the general funds to McDonald's Caravitas for $42.74.
Okay.
I would ask the clerk not to call my name, given my relationship, our company with the franchisee.
Okay, very good. Any other questions on McDonald's?
Okay, so 6A, accounts payable from the general fund to McDonald's Caravitas for $42.74. Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Kargi.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, very good. So we're on to recommendations of boards, commissions, and committee. I'd ask Julie and Lisa, and I don't know, Beth, if you want to come up to give us an annual report on the Sustainability Commission. They've done some really great work. They continue to give us great work for this area.
Thanks. Okay, hi.
Hi, Julie.
Thanks for Julie Moeller, Chair of the River Forest Sustainability Commission. And I want to thank you for inviting us again to talk about sustainability in the village. This year's report, I hope you all read your, the packet that was in your board thing. This year we took a little bit of a different approach. We sent the board about a 50-page document, and we were trying to kind of encapsulate everything that we are working on so that we're creating kind of a history. So what we're learning is as new board members come on that they don't necessarily know how the block parties started or why we started them or how they became green. And so this document was also to assign commissioners to each area of focus, and then like I said, create kind of a historical document. So this is just kind of these first couple slides are just kind of placeholders for me to talk about how we started with this matrix, our focus, and then the strategies. The main goal of the Sustainability Commission, as I spoke last June after my my training at the Climate Reality Project in Minneapolis, was the main goal for climate change is to reduce our carbon emissions. So we wanted to make sure that all of the programs that we are doing on the commission ramp up to that, and also to help explain what we're doing to residents. They may be saying, well, you're planting natives, how does that, help with, the carbon in the climate? So we also started a measurement this year, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. So then, again, this placeholder, we took each area of focus and we put what we're doing. Like this says composting, residential, curbside. And then we took it back to the comprehensive plan, and we went to the action plan matrix goals, and we listed the goals that relate to each of the programs that we're doing to make sure that we're meeting the village priorities and working on what they also want to work on. And our time is being spent in the right area. So I also want to do a shout out to Lisa Gillis, who was really instrumental in putting this whole document together. I kind of just said, we want this and this and this, and then she made the magic happen. And I want to say thank you to Lisa for that. I also want to acknowledge Beth Chang, another commissioner that's in the room tonight, who helped, was instrumental with Shannon Williams with the metrics that we did. Okay, so this is a early start. This is kind of beyond us, and so we're taking it slow. This is an example of what we're trying to capture, all the carbon that's being emitted, and there are standards for this. And Shannon Roberts, I'm sorry, I called her Shannon Williams. Shannon Roberts actually does this for a living for Ernst & Young, for companies, and this is only residential, but all the electricity, carbon that's generated from residents, passenger vehicles, we're trying to get like the freight train running through. And so right now we have this number. It doesn't really mean anything right now, but it's an inventory. But then on the other side, we have how we divert these things through our composting, through recyclables, through some of the native plants. So we're trying to demonstrate that some of the actions that we do are diverting, and then also with reduction, because there's not just one thing that's going to take the carbon out of the air and get us to things like 100% renewable, which is the document that you signed, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So hopefully within this year, this will become clearer, and we'll continue to talk about this and relate it to our programs and give it to the board. So it just takes some time from volunteers to calculate this information. But so like I said, the focus areas are the energy, transportation, water, waste, ecosystems, and education that we wrote all the programs on. I'm going to talk about energy and waste separately at the end, but I just wanted to highlight some of the things that happened this year. And this was not just the Sustainability Commission, of course, but transportation. We kind of hit it out of the park. With the first River Forest Bicycle Plan, Commissioner Andy Basney and former president or chair of the commission, Katie Brennan, were instrumental in getting a task force together on the bike plan and working with the consultant on this, and then it became part of the comp plan. And I know that the village has already put in a request in their budget to do the near-term phase of striping on the streets. I want to thank John Anderson for overseeing that. Water. The village, again, John Anderson has been stellar in pursuing green alleyways and funding for that. I know that there's one green alley being planned for this year, and 3 more being prepared for when the money is available. So I would just say something about permeable pavers. It's just you cannot have enough. So wherever you can put them, you should put them. It's storms, as we all know, are getting harder, and more water is coming down in a short amount of time. And with the investment that the village has made in our sewer system, I think that it's prudent to make sure that as many areas are permeable pavers as possible. And I just threw a picture in there of trees. Again, can't say enough about trees. We should plant trees whenever possible. They sequester carbon. They hold water in the ground. Their roots hold more water, just like native plants. So that's just something that we continue to promote in the area of water. Waste, there's lots of different approaches we take to waste. One is working with the schools on the pumpkin smash. Now, it's about 4 tons of pumpkins. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's also an opportunity for us to promote that we do composting, that you don't want to throw these in your garbage, and we use it. A, it's fun, and B, it's an educational opportunity. And then last July, we, again, with a student who prompted us, Charlotte Meyer and Mackenzie, we met with area retailers and held a kind of a forum on single-use plastics. We had Jewel there, we had Walgreens, we had a restaurant, and we talked about, while we're not interested in we can't put a ban on plastic bags or single-use plastics, we wanted to address the incentives or how we could work with retailers on reducing single-use plastics. And while this work is very slow, because we're not coming up with ordinances, we're really doing it through education, we are meeting with retailers, especially Jewel and Fresh Time has been a really good partner on ways that they can stop using plastics or reduce their plastic use. So that was first of its kind to have a meeting with retailers last July. Then ecosystems. These are examples of the Parkway for Pollinator Gardens, which are part of our Green Block Party. This summer will be the third and final year of the Pollinator for Parkway program, which will have added 2,200 square feet of pollinator gardens. And all of these gardens in the program were paid for by grants that the Commission applied for, either through the Oak Park River Forest Community Foundation, Planet Green, and also through a grant through Open Lands. We'll have paid for all 3 years of these gardens. Like I said, it will continue this year, this summer. They're free to any Green Block Party. And then we'll be coming up with a new plan for the Green Block Parties. But that's been a very successful program. And we partnered with Green America, who it's a magazine and it's an organization that they put them on their climate victory garden map on their website. And then we also, again, thanks to John Anderson, have mapped these all native gardens in River Forest on a map. Just like our tree map, we have now native gardens. So this also includes the great work that the Park District's done. And overall, in the last 2 years, 27,000 square feet of native plants are now visible in River Forest, thanks to the Park District. And through our program. So those are being mapped. And we also wrote an article in the Green America about our program, and they featured it on their website. Trees, again, this is Andy Basney and a representative from the Martin Arboretum leading our first tree tour. About 30 people showed up on a Saturday morning to just learn about the trees in River Forest and the importance of them. And then this is something new. We just received it's called ArbNet, and I have to read this because this is so new. We just received the designation, and it is this is a national organization that is, just a second, the organization is an interactive, collaborative, international community of Arboreta. The ArbNet Arboretum Accreditation Program is the only global initiative to officially recognize Arboreta based on a set of professional standards. We're level 1. We plan on going after level 2 this year. And it's if you go to their website, it's actually quite interesting. They list areas around the world that are accredited and meet certain standards of education and tree types and diversity of trees in the area, and the importance of trees for our climate. So that is a logo that we can is now on our website on the sustainability page and can be used as for the village. And so it's kind of another cool thing, kind of like Tree USA. Also, we continue our education. We table at many events. This is at the like a One Earth Film Festival. Education also, while this could be under waste, it can also be under education, is that we were at the food truck rally, and it's pretty much impossible to have enough volunteers to be at every waste station. So what we did is we just had one in the middle of the food truck rally, and just so we could talk to people and tell them what is compostable, landfill, just tell them what we're doing. And it really turned out to be a better way than trying to, as we all know, it's hard to get volunteers for things. And, especially something fun where people just want to enjoy themselves. So we set up there, and I'm happy to say actually the Park District did sign up for the curbside composting program this year. So hopefully we'll see more composting there. And then I was just going to highlight a few. You know, what's great about our commissioners and what was in that packet is that we all have these areas of expertise, and we all do. We attend a lot of meetings outside of the, our regular monthly meetings, and we do a lot of speaking engagements, and we participate in a lot of organizations. So I just off the top of my head threw out that March 6th to the 15th is the Winter Film Festival. For you who don't know, it started in Oak Park, and it's in its 9th year, I believe. And March 3rd will be the Green Lie at Dominican University, and March 13th will be the Biggest Little Farm at the Good Earth Greenhouse. And March 10th, I'll be speaking at the League of Women Voters panel at the 19th Century Club about sustainability in river forest, and I'll be joined with Oak Park and others who are doing work in that area. March 22nd, we have Deep Roots, who does the gardens at the Forest for the Green Bloc Party. Will be holding a seminar at River Forest Library regarding how to get your planting started for organic. And April 18th is a garden seminar at the Good Earth on how to grow edibles. And that was set up by Mary Masala, who used to be commissioner and continues to work with us on, the community garden. So there's a lot going on and a lot of involved people, which is really wonderful. Now, this slide was meant to wake you up. So energy. This is really the whole reason I'm here tonight. Thank you for signing the commitment. For the commitment that the village signed was to attain 100% renewable by 2050, and you're going to be hearing a lot about this. We also signed that commitment. All these commitments, of course, are non-binding, but this is part of the Paris Climate Agreement and the Chicago Climate Charter that we signed back in December 2017, and it's really time to start acting on these. But how do we get there? Let's go 100% renewable. It's going to take a lot of different things. As you know, we got Soul Smart designation, bronze level, and it's going to take things like allowing solar, people to put solar in the house, allowing that to be easier. But also, what the commission is recommending is that the village pursue community aggregation, either for a 1, 2, or 3 year contract. Now, aggregation is not the answer, but it is an important part of starting the road, on the road to getting to renewable. So what this looks like is I've talked to MC Squared, who works with 14 different communities. They just signed a contract with Oak Park, and they will match. It's really a no-brainer. They match the price of ComEd. They, like I said, you can sign for a 1, 2, or 3 year contract. And what's great about MC Squared is that they receive their renewable energy from, it's all wind, and they try to do work with as many people, companies in Illinois. So your energy is not necessarily coming from other places. They're supporting businesses that are in Illinois and are producing renewable energy here. So as I would recommend, and I'd like to, I've already spoken to them. I've sent information to John Anderson. I've talked to several of you about it, and I'd like to see us pursue that and see how that could work. The time is, and we can do it right now. We could do it tomorrow. So if we could start that, and it would be an opt-out program, we can then start walking down the road and using our consultants like the National Renewable Energy Lab that I believe Eric Simon went to. And these are higher energy consultants that are out there through the Mayor's Caucus, through Planet Green. There's lots of resources out there. I think we really just need to designate, staff time and commission time to pursue a roadmap of what it looks like for river forest. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We need to continue to support solar installations where applicable, and also something is transition. I was looking at the capital expenditures through 2025, and one of the things that you should really be considering is with the Clean Energy Jobs Act that Pritzker is expected to sign, there's going to be a lot of money in there for transitioning fleets to electric. And that will also then lead to having charging stations in the village. So we should also look at incentivizing developers to pursue renewable energy options and enforce the new Energy Star guidelines for developments. So a lot of, whoops, I hit the wrong one. So I did mention the Clean Energy Jobs Act. This puts the state also making a commitment to 100% renewable by 2050. So you're going to, and what it happens is that the money that this, once it's signed, I'm assuming it's going to be signed, transitions workers from coal and natural gas to new careers. It supports that. And then the Future Energy Jobs Act, which kind of kickstarted a lot of the solar in Illinois, it'll continue that and continue the funding for that. So you've got kind of wind and solar funding that would continue, but also incentivize transitioning to creating an electric transportation system. And our goals are to advocate sustainability, increase government and residential awareness of environmental issues, and to enhance and promote environmental education for our residents. So that there could be money there, but it's really what's happening in the future. I mean, you read it everywhere, and we should grab the money while we can. With CEJA, I would ask anybody in this room and trustees to personally sign on and support that act so that it can pass. Then, so another one to wake you up, and I'm almost done, is my favorite. I left it for last, is the waste contract. Replace the recycling extravaganza.
Mm-hmm.
This was, to use the word, it's not sustainable anymore. Last year, we collected 48,000 pounds of electronics in 5 hours. I was just at a meeting, the meeting that Katie mentioned, and the town of, where were we? Elmhurst. Yeah. Elmhurst has 4 collections a year. They run from 9 to 12, so 12 hours, and they collected 70,000 pounds. So 4 different collections. We did 48,000 in 5 hours. It's out of control, and it's using police resources. It's gotten bigger than I think we can kind of handle, and so there could be modifications to that. But quite honestly, I haven't really even started planning the extravaganza, because we have a new opportunity, and this new opportunity is to extend our contract with Strom, and look at extending the contract, and for a small monthly fee for each household, we can have what Oak Park has and other communities in that electronic scrap metal household batteries and other items to be determined could be picked up by a phone call. You would put them outside at your curb, and what would happen is when they have a bulk of, you'd call Roy Strom and say, I have 2 TVs and a handful of cords to be picked up, and they'd say, okay, we will call you back, and there'd be no charge. Put them at your curb. So when they have a handful of, like, let's say 10 calls, they'd send a truck out to pick up batteries on Monroe and electronics on Forest, and you could call as many times as you want, but you'd be assessed just maybe $1 per household per month. And I think that could be a very, very, very good thing for the village to look at. So it'd be a pickup at home, it'd be convenient time, and also if we could extend the contract, I know that Roy Strom is looking at reducing the price of composting. Right now it's $19.72, and they reduce it to $15. And one of the reasons he said he was doing that is because we've already reached 300 subscribers, which is, good for them, and it's cost effective, and so he can lower the price. And all of this for the low price. No, keeping our white glove service. And I can't say enough good things about, I think, our waste hauling services here in River Forest. And what was interesting today is that I came home and I look at this National Geographic. the end of trash. The end of trash. I was so excited. I haven't read it yet, but I thought, okay, we got pickup for electronics and scrap metal. It's really becoming a reuse and recycling specific market, as Katie said. The markets are kind of changing, and I think this is, if the village could look at this and extend the contract, I think we'd be ahead of the game and offering a great service to our residents. So, to recap, the commission's busy. We're very happy, but we need the village behind us, and we need the village board behind us to go to aggregation for energy. And we need we'd like to enhance the recycling services, and we'd like to do all of that now.
Yeah. Well, when is the Strom contract up?
It's a year and a half.
22.
Yeah, a year and a half.
So the contract. Use my microphone.
Yep. Okay.
The contract expires April 30th, 2022, and there's a 5-year renewal built in at the village's sole discretion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's nothing saying that you
can't
couldn't
add
go.
these.
You couldn't go back, and that's one of the inherent things that you balance with a contract that large that's over $1 million. Do you go out to the market and do a bidding process, or do you go back and renegotiate? If you recall, several years ago, before we entered into the current contract, we did a resident survey. And at that time, there was an interest in maintaining the existing vendor and the existing side door service. The problem is going out to bid. There's not a lot of company. There are some that will do it, but not a lot of companies that provide the type of service that Strom provides for the village.
Right. And I think we kind of all agree to that they're a fairly good, maybe really good provider. So I think to answer your question, Julie, in terms of the adding the electronics, I think we need to discuss that as a board and agree to that. And then I think as far as the aggregation, I think the same. I think we probably have to look at what vendors and providers are out there that create the clean energy aggregation.
Yeah.
I think O'Park and others do that as well.
Yeah, and I have the information.
Yeah.
On a
So
broker who will auction.
Unless I hear differently, I think that the board and I and the staff are real excited about doing that, because we've aggregated before. We did energy aggregation, and it was a big success until it wasn't, and until the ComEd came in within the reasonable per kilowatt price. So then it made sense to go away from the aggregation, but now I think it makes sense to go look at it differently and back at it with using clean energy vendors. So I'm all for it. So so I guess that's what we'll do.
And if I recall, the issue, John, with Strom was we had talked to them about potentially doing kind of a one-off as it relates to like electronics recycling within the existing contract, and they were not interested at that at this point. They wanted to have that contract renegotiated in total, obviously extended out.
Right. It was all as a condition of extending the contract.
Correct.
Yeah, because they're offering to pick up even more, they're offering to pick up the things that were all collected at the electronics or at the extravaganza.
And the challenge a little bit, it's kind of like a string on a sweater, right? So you get into one area and then you get into another area. And so if there's a desire, and we can certainly bring this back for a further discussion, but if there's a desire for the board to maintain with the existing vendor, we could certainly go back and renegotiate that. But I think we'd want to do something a little bit globally.
Certainly this is just our recommendation, and we're happy to work through that. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Julie, I don't know if it still exists, but the West Cook recycling, is that still in operation?
The West Cook Solid Waste Agency?
They do electronic recycling also? Is that still...
Yeah, they do that. I think they have one coming up. Also, there's other recycling extravaganza. There's, but for us, you can take it to Burridge. You do have to pay $25 for tube TVs. So, but I think everything else is free. But this would, so if you were paying $12 a year, this could take, just to your curb, the gas to Burridge alone. But there are places to take it. It's just not convenient. And just the fact.
But absent something else, residents should know that that's available.
Oh yeah, and it is on our website. And actually, Strom will pick up your electronics now, but they charge. So it's just not cheap. It's $25, I think, for a small box. But yeah.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll come back with an aggregation plan for the board to discuss, and then global or an expanded contract with Strom to see if it makes sense. You know,
we'll put them on future agendas for discussion.
For discussion and action, I think.
Let me know what you need. So.
We agree. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
And we're go ahead.
The electronic pickup wouldn't be opt-in. That would be just a surcharge on the bill for everyone.
Yep.
For every household. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I would try to get them to pick up as much as possible.
Right.
But I mean, just so it's clear, there's no recycling extravaganza being planned at the moment. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And when do you think, to put you on the spot, when do you think we could have this back to the village board?
I would
now.
guess yeah.
I'm trying to help Julie here. So, yeah, now.
No, I mean, I think we could just sit down and figure that out. We'd probably do aggregation's probably a little bit easier, so we could probably tackle that
60
one first.
60 days, 30 days?
Oh yeah, no, I would say within 60, no more than 90.
Is that okay? Works for you?
I mean, it works out well. It's coinciding with our budget year.
I didn't really expect an answer tonight, so.
No, we're all about action. So, okay, so within the 60, 90 days, we'll come back with the board, have a discussion, and hopefully some action plan.
Yeah.
So really appreciate your efforts, and excited about, signing on to all the solar and climate change. It's
Yeah, great.
You all brought it to the table.
Yeah,
so.
I want to say thank you to all the
Yep.
staff and
Yep.
and the board for their support of the commission. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. Julie, I also want to acknowledge that this matrix that you guys are putting together to collect and the data and categorize how our CO2 levels and what we're saving it's an incredible feat.
Yep.
It's going to be very helpful. I think also with the board decisions going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's helped to inform,
absolutely
decisions so that we're not just going, oh yeah, let's do another panel discussion. And we're really trying to be more focused on getting results.
It's huge.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I agree.
If I can just take the opportunity to say too, I'm just always, Julie, if you can share with the rest of the commission members who aren't here, it's really impressive the amount of thought and passion and effort, professionalism. I mean, kudos to all of you. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So let's moving on to 7B, which is a zoning board of appeals.
Okay, well, I'll move to approve an ordinance granting the requested variations to section 10-8-7 of the zoning ordinance for 24-3 Park.
Okay.
243, right? 20. What do you say?
I'm sorry, you're right. 243. 243
Second.
Park. I already had to
I'll
change
second.
the address, but I got
Right. Okay. Any questions? Anything that you want to?
I just had a question on the process. How was the zoning board able to reconsider this? Because I remember when we had that house on Park,
Yeah.
we originally voted down, and then I had moved to reconsider, and I thought that there was a legal problem with moving to reconsider zoning board issues or zoning matters.
The Zoning Board of Appeals has rules that allows motions to reconsider to be made, and so under their rules, they followed that rule. It's rule number 2. At the village board level, you amended your rules regarding motions to reconsider in light of what occurred previously, so that now you have the same ability to bring those items back.
Did we prove that?
Yes, it was.
We did.
Yeah, you amended the village code regarding motions to reconsider. It's specifically in light of that.
Yeah. That one. Huh? That was a hot topic. Yeah. So we get a lot of hot topics. Okay. So that's what that is. Any questions anything that you need the staff to explain? If not, then we're trying to get to the meat of the meeting. So I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to take the vote.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Karji.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, the second is the 7C. This is a text amendment regarding beauty salons and micropigmentation. So if I can get a motion in a second, and we can discuss it.
I'll move to approve an ordinance amending the Village of River Forest zoning ordinance regarding beauty shops, permanent cosmetics, microblading, and micropigmentation.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Do you want to give any update on this, or?
No, this is consistent with what we had discussed early on when we asked for a consensus to move forward with this this text amendment. This is providing more of an updated definition as it relates to these types of uses to better reflect what's going on in the marketplace today.
Yep. Agreed. Any comments or questions on this? Okay. Hearing none, let's go ahead and take the vote.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Kargi.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. On to the next item, 7D. Okay, the one we've been waiting for. I would like a motion in a second so we can talk about it. We can go through it. So if I can ask a trustee to move and one to second so we can get to that point of
I
discussion.
move to concur with the recommendation of the village president to appoint trustee Tom Kargi, trustee Patty Hennick, Dan Hollenbach, Kathleen Hughes, Dawn Mizgala, Ronald Lamar, John Rager, Annette Madden, Ingrid Liu, Catherine Christmas, Joel Luking, Lori Gillard, and John Flynn to the Deer Management Ad Hoc Committee to serve until the committee is dissolved.
Second.
Okay. All right. Well, let me maybe begin. And first of all, I want to thank the 5 residents that came here to talk to me, I think specifically, it sounds like. I do appreciate it. Everyone knows I'm not fearful of feedback. I accept it, and I accept that you're a little angry, maybe a lot angry at me in terms of the process. And I'm sorry for that, but I think I did the process that I've been doing for the last 7 years as village president and what is statutorily given to me, and that is to make appointments to commissions and committees. And I will continue to do that as village president, and I am sure any village president that's sitting in this seat will do the same as well. That's statutorily given to us. The whole purpose is so that we don't get into these conflicts. It is to allow for the village president to review the material openly and honestly amongst the village president, and come up with what I believe in this particular case, what I believe is the best fit, best perspectives that the applicants can bring to the table. And I think I did that in the Deer Commission and the Deer Committee. Now, I understand that some of you don't believe that. In fact, I did write some notes, Bob. Facts will always lead our decision making. I've said that. I know that I did say, whatever, January 13th, that I will get input. But the process didn't give us that. Okay, here's what the process did. And we probably forgot about it, and I understand why we did. On January 27th, we voted for the resolution, right? We did. We didn't vote for the resolution on January. I think we did. And then we said that on the 18th, we were going to close down the application process and see who has come before and applied. And then on the 24th, which is this evening, we said we wanted to give the names and vote on it. So on the 26th, we would have a meeting. So we now have to give our agenda items on Thursday. So basically, it gave me 1 day and a half, 18th and 19th. Well, excuse me, because it was midnight 18th. So 19th and some of the 20th to actually give back to all of you what my recommendations and suggestions are. Now, I stand by my appointments. We have 30 phenomenal, great applications. And I would like all 30 to actually be on the committee. But that's not what the Board of Trustees told me to do. They told me to pick 11. And I did my job. Now, some of you might think, well, you didn't do it well enough, and that's okay. That's certainly your prerogative. But I think I did. Because if you look at the objective of the committee, it is to try to reduce deer conflict, right? And deer conflict could mean many things. I think the fact that deer are eating people's landscaping, and I absolutely stand by my comment. Landscaping will never drive my decision to call. I will say that again. Landscaping will never drive, or property damage will never drive my decision to call. But that doesn't mean we don't listen to those residents and we get their viewpoints, because we've all said we want varied viewpoints, and so do I. And we want to find ways to reduce deer conflict. Well, if we found that many of our residents find that that's a deer conflict for them, we should want to listen to them. And I want to listen to them as well. So of the 30, I know 3 of you are out there that were not chosen. It wasn't because you're not qualified. It's not because you didn't bring the best data. I mean, I know you all. You're smart, bright, and I want you on this commission. But I thought the best thing for us to do, and I continue to believe that, we opened this up to our community because, as Trustee Brennan said, it's really nice that residents want to come together and solve a problem. And I believe that too. I think it's really nice that they want to come and solve a problem. And so I really spent a lot of time thinking about how we can open this up and bring new voices and new perspectives. And that does not mean that we exclude any and all of you. In fact, I encourage everybody to be part of the meetings. They're open, no different than you're here tonight telling us your feelings. I hope that you tell the committees your feelings. I don't want that to stop. In fact, I encourage it. So the 11 that I picked, I believe they're great residents, and they want to work a solution to the best of their ability for this community. They only have this community at heart, and I believe that, just like all of you. Now, 3 of you were disappointed, and actually I got a call from a couple others that were disappointed, and I explained to them because they personally called me. I wish you guys would have personally called me, and I told them why they were not chosen. And I certainly said they were well qualified. They were certainly capable of being part of it, but I had 11 to choose from. And I said to them, be involved, just like I'm saying it tonight. And each one of them that I talked to said, thank you, I will. They weren't yelling at me. They weren't saying that I was working behind the scenes or I'm not transparent and so forth and so on. They 27 of them are not here. So 27 of them said, okay, we believe in this process, and I appreciate the process. This is not the first hard commission that we put together. You heard from Julie Moeller, and Katie Brennan knows this. We worked really, really hard to get the Sustainability Commission, and look at how successful they are. We had trustees that did not want, and correct me if I'm wrong, did not want that commission and voted against it. Could you imagine? But I, Katie, and others, pursued it. And we kept on saying it was the right thing, and it will come out good. We promise you it will work. And it did. It's a huge success, and the outcomes are unbelievable for our community. And I am so grateful every day to these volunteers that spend their time and energy, countless hours, to try to help our community. And I thank them profusely every day. Economic Development Commission, another commission that was formed under my leadership. It was a difficult commission because it meant that, we're going to have more look on economic development. We're going to have more feedback. Yes, I wanted more residential feedback on our economic development. I just didn't want the Board of Trustees and myself to be the only folks that really looked at economic development. We wanted feedback from the residents of River Forest. And again, trustees weren't necessarily interested in the commission. It's a huge success today. It worked. It made it. And since I've been elected village president until now, I've probably appointed hundreds and reappointed hundreds of residents. And not one has called me, you know, doing the wrong thing, using the wrong process. Not one. So I'm convinced that I am taking my statutory responsibility that I was given by the Board of Trustees to come forth with my recommendations. And I'm doing that. And I'm doing it under a very tight time frame, a day and a half. So to have a relaxed, collaborative effort is not possible under this time frame. But I understand the time frame, and I accepted the time frame along with all of my colleagues here. I've accepted it, and I said, let's do it. But now I'm being criticized that I didn't pick the right people. They're not right from the right town. They didn't answer the questions right, you know, and we're picking apart our residents. And I say, this is crazy. We're all one community. We all work together. We all should show leadership around this table and say, you're welcome. All of you in this room are welcome to every commission, every committee, every meeting we have. I'll emphasize, you are welcome. I want you to be part of it, and I want you to stay involved. And I want the 11 to be part of it. I'd like to have 30. If I was authorized at 30, I'd say, okay, they all should be on it. But I was authorized to do 11, and that's what I did. And I think I did my job, and I think I did it well under the circumstances of the timing. Let's see. I don't want to go into any further other viewpoints because I know, they're all on audio and what words other people have used against the calling versus for the calling. To me, that's not the issue. The issue is what the objectives were on the resolution, and that one of them, to me, sticks in my head. How do we reduce and manage the deer conflict? That's all I care about. And that's what we should manage. That's what we all should, around this table, focus on, and not focus on where the person lives. I mean, I guess it's semi-important, but it's not the important part. I don't think we should focus on, well, did the person say, well, they're not easily change their mind. In fact, we probably want someone like that so that we can ensure we are really debating the issue and not just having homogeneous thinking. I don't think we want homogeneous thinking. I think we want people to think differently, right? I think. That's what we do on all of our commissions. We bring in people that want to think differently. So I stand by what I've recommended. I know this is difficult, and I apologize for, and I mean this, I apologize that this is drawn out. It's not supposed to be drawn out, but the Sustainability Commission was drawn out. The Economic Development Commission was drawn out. All these commissions, they're hard. They're hard because it means change, and it means, somebody wins and somebody loses when it shouldn't be that. Everybody wins. We're all included. You're all invited. And I hope by the end of this discussion that we as trustees and my colleagues and I, respect the process and say, these 11 residents are just as important as the other 19. And these residents will bring facts. They will do research. They will help in the discussion. There's nothing in those applications that gave me any pause to say that they are not and will not keep the community's best interest in hand. Not one of them. They were all very passionate about doing what's best for the community. And that might mean no calling. That's fine. That's fine. So let's not try to draw conclusions, I guess is what I'm saying, or draw solutions now. What I'd like us to do now is let's move on to the job at hand. Let's work with the 11, or whatever amount you want, and let's work together to get the job done, to get it kicked off. I know, Patty, you want to get it kicked off because there's a lot of work ahead of you, and I do too. But I don't think we should be painfully looking at each application And that's why it's not given to, and let me, that's true for every commission. It is. I know you're talking about Carmela. Carmela asked for, when we were doing the Economic Development Commission, she asked for the list. She got the listing of the applications. And in fact, I think her ask was the reason why we changed the applications being those that were selected were part of the packet. I don't think that even the application was part of the packet, if I can recall. And I think she might have changed that. I'm not 100%.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
There
you.
was concerns that those materials for the people selected were not in the packet.
Right. So that's what was, it was never, let me see everybody. Because trustees know that it's the role and the responsibility of the village president to go through the applications and not debate. You wouldn't want us to debate residents, you know, is this person better than this person, or this person has this quality and that quality, and who calls the resident? Okay, Patty, you call this person, I call that person. I mean, it doesn't work like that in any municipality. Any municipality. It works just like we are doing it. And so, I mean, if you want to change it, I guess it's your prerogative, but I wouldn't, it's a lot of work. And in the end of the day, just I mentioned, the Sustainability Commission came out perfectly fine. We worked through a lot of the issues. The Economic Development Commission came out great. We worked through a lot of the issues, and they all came out great. And they're all giving us great advice and counsel. So, I think I've hit on most of some of the comments that were made. By the way, Marta, I do listen and I do my homework. I think people around this table, unless they're lying to me, I mean, they'll say I'm the hardest working board member on this table. I think I've heard it from you, Katie. I've heard it from you, Patty. I've heard it from a lot of people. So I am hardworking and I do my homework. And I know that this selection was disappointing for you. I acknowledge that. And I think that's what's causing a bit of this anger. And I'm sorry for that. But I believe I did the right thing. I believe I picked the right people to do the role. I believe we're going to get through this, and you're all going to be part of it. And we're going to make the right choice, and we're going to do the right thing for this community. I know that. I'm not afraid of that at all. So with that, I'll open it up with to the trustees. Let them ask any questions they want regarding any and or of the process or the people.
Well, I'll confirm. I do think that you are extremely hardworking, and with the bumper sticker, I want to thank you. I want to thank my mayor for your hard work, and I will come out and say I probably would not have run for trustee if you were not our village president.
Thank you.
But I also do want to say that over these past 6 months, I have listened to the information and the data that the residents who spoke up tonight gave us, and it personally enlightened me, and they affected my vote, and I voted for the task force largely because of the information that I learned from these hardworking residents. But for all of the information that they gathered and shared with us, we would not be the educated board that we are sitting here right now, and we wouldn't have this task force.
Agreed.
So I want our task force to be the best possible configuration, and I want the work product that comes from this task force to be reliable and trusted by our residents. So I would rather take a little bit more time right now before this work has started to tweak it and get it right so that we can have all of our residents behind us, rather than risk continued questions about whether the work product that comes from this task force, and I understand that the work product that comes from the task force comes in the form of a recommendation to this board, and then this board gets to look at it again. But nonetheless, I want the best recommendation possible, and I also consider the optics. The optics, it's been pointed out to us that it's not good. For some reason, no one of the, this group that has enlightened this board has been selected for the task force. And I think that what I heard tonight is that these particular residents aren't dismayed that they personally weren't selected. I think they're dismayed that no one in this hardworking group of residents who spent their time to research and to come to all of these meetings and to share with us the information that they learned has been selected. And there's a concern that that point of view and that deep knowledge, in my mind, we do ourselves a disservice by not having someone who has done this hard work and has this deep knowledge on the task force. So I would ask, is it, when we decided to create the task force, we then looked at numbers. What number? 9, 11, 13? I would ask, can we add 2 more people?
Yeah.
And select someone from this group so that we have the benefit of this knowledge there at the board. And I do think it makes a difference if it's someone who's at the table as opposed to in the audience. I think that it is best for this village to have someone who has invested their time and energy to learn about this issue and to share that information, and upon which we based our vote to create the task force on the task force itself.
Let me answer that. Yes, it's the prerogative of the trustees. We talked about it at how many. Like I said, I wish it'd go to 30. I think all 30 of you should be on it, and I mean that. I think I said that in all your emails. That's how good the applications were. But so I have no issues of increasing it, and I have no issues of even adding people who've done the research. The only caution I have is that people who want to get involved in River Forest and they don't have the time and energy to be like what Mary and all of you have been, which is phenomenal, do they not get thought of? Because they too want to contribute to River Forest. So my point is if we make that a criteria, which I have no issues of making it a criteria, we just have to be careful that we're not excluding another group that really wants to give back and help with the deer conflict, but feel like, well, maybe I'm not going to get selected because I don't attend the board meetings and I don't have time because I had a family, I've got work or whatever.
Well, one thing that I remember from the Cornell study, and maybe there were other studies that gave information based on other municipalities' experiences about how to create a task force, how to select members. I think that it was emphasized that it's important to select task force members who represent all of the different point of views, so they're there at the table. So what we know is that there are a group of people who have a strong point of view about creating the task force. And
if we want to set aside, it is, and I think somebody quoted me, this isn't difficult. It is not. It really isn't. If we want to set aside a group of 2 members to say that they are going to be members from people who showed up at the board table and brought some really good information, I have no issues with that. I really don't. I'm all in cautioning us that we don't. So adding is the right thing to do versus changing. So I'm changing people. So because we want to keep all of our residents who have applied engaged. We don't want to exclude. So if you want to add and have that as a criteria, I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that.
I could vote yes to this if we were able to add a couple more spots, and including some people who have done the hard work. Yeah. Well,
I mean, let's talk about
1 or 2.
No, I'm asking only because then if we're opening that door and we're opening 2 slots, I can hear from the people that are not here that wanted to be on the task force saying, how come I applied? I wanted to be there, and now, right, and you didn't pick me.
That was my point. No, I just don't want to disenfranchise people.
And I'm not saying no to your
You're
proposal.
just clarifying.
I'm just saying, no, I'm clarifying. I'm just saying it's going to open the door.
Right.
And I agree with, I think it was Mr. Zimmerman, that we don't want to disenfranchise the residents, and I'm afraid we're already heading in that direction.
Right.
Or let me put it this way, I think we're already there almost, because I'm hearing all the back and forth, and we're all saying the polite words of we can all work together. I mean, all the applications say that, but yet there are people who feel that it's still not a fair task force the way it's being structured. So I'm okay with adding 2 positions. I'm just saying, have we thought about if we're going to add 1 person from the group that's here, are we going to add somebody else from the other group who's not here? It's a question I'm asking.
Well, I think, again, because
I
everyone
mean,
thinks,
I'm serious.
you know, Russ,
I was at the beginning, as it's been
okay.
pointed out so many times. I said this task force should have been half of the culling people, pro-culling, and half of the anti-culling, so that we heard from both viewpoints. I've said that from the very beginning. No. Well, I'm just saying that.
But let me clarify something for you, Russ. But that's not how the applications came in.
I understand.
Okay,
that.
you gotta
I proposed this at the beginning, and then the application wasn't structured that way.
No, it wasn't structured that way. And
now
all
people
of them,
are assuming,
yeah,
based on either names or addresses or some statements, that they're either one or the other, but yet it's not very clear. So again, we're in the position where we're at now. I'm okay with adding 2 more if that's what people want. I'm just saying, I don't know if it's going to be satisfactory, because are people going to stop after the 2, or is someone else going to say, what about me, what about me? And I'm just saying, whatever we decide, as I think someone mentioned here, let's just decide today and get it over with.
So,
this is about
so here's another
meeting.
another perspective.
Go ahead.
I look at this list, and I don't know all of these people.
I don't either.
But here's the thing that I do know: there are only 2 names on here of people who I know for sure got up at that podium and spoke about it, and they spoke about the health and welfare of our community, and those are the 2 people that Dr. Liu and John Rager have the that aspect of it, which is what we're trying to do. Nobody else got up and stated a position. Now they stated positions in their applications, and so I mean, we had the option. The conversation was 9, 11, 13, and we decided on 11. And so now it feels like, I don't have my way, so now I'm going to take my baseball and I'm going to go home. I think we agreed to do something. Statutorily, our village president is allowed to pick the commissioners, and I really just want to see this group come together and start working. And again, as you said, Kathy, nobody's locking the door to keep people out of this thing. And so it's my hope that, under the leadership of Tom and Patty, that they're going to take all this stuff and they're going to bundle it up for something for us to make a decision on.
Right. Right, and that's interesting. That's a good observation, Bob. That's exactly what my thought process was to get the other than John and Dr. Liu, which I think was going to address the public health issue, because that's a slightly different, more complicated issue. Is to try to look at new ideas, new perspectives, not at all discounting everything that was brought to the table. In fact, that's why I said we want everybody's input. So when we opened it up, when we said, please apply, we didn't say, oh, well, 5 of them are going to go somewhere. We're just going to pick 6. We said everybody is welcomed. Everybody is going to be considered. That's what we said. And so if you're saying today that we didn't mean that, then but don't accuse me of not picking the right thing. I really believe, and I don't think you all are. I think you're being very respectful, and I appreciate it. I think. I picked what I thought was really the best people that can help us through this deer conflict issue. I really believe I did. So that's kind of. But if again, I want this to work. I want it to be successful. So I don't want it. I want people to walk away. I mean, knowing that this is going to get managed because we got Tom and Patty at the helm. It's going to get managed. And that's what happened when we did the Sustainability Commission, Katie, and the EDC when you became chair. It's going to get managed. We can get through the bumps.
Yeah, and I agree with Bob that we want this commission to get going and get working, and and I trust under Patty and Tom's leadership that they can do that. But we want that, but the fact is that this is what we have. As Rez said, we have a conundrum. We have disgruntled residents who feel that the correct process hasn't been followed. So this is what we have right now. Even though you want, excuse me, just to finish my thought. So I think we have to be realistic, and I think it is different from commissions because the Sustainability Commission, we have a goal. We have our mission statement, and everyone signs on to that. And we didn't start. Sure, we started the Sustainability Commission. I recall well that there were a couple of board members who were not advocates, but in the end, they did vote for it. It wasn't an issue of having different opinions amongst commissioners. The commissioners were all, together on it.
But it was the opposite. My point is that we go through difficult issues.
Absolutely.
And that was all my point. And we did
Absolutely.
have an EDC ad hoc committee, which also had, again, not the right people. I mean, we can go back and listen to that audio back in the EDC. We had trustees saying the same thing. And guess what? We came out of that committee with a commission that looks pretty good and runs really well. It worked.
Amen.
Amen. So, I mean, I guess I agree with you. You're never going to make everybody happy. I get it. And this is an issue.
I guess my opinion is that it's not that you're never going to make anybody happy. I feel that, our part of our job, based on the rubric or the template that we were following, is to make sure that all the different points of view are represented on the task force. And I was surprised and dismayed that there wasn't representation from this particular group.
So the only thing I'll say, and I'll just stress it, and Patty, I'll let you talk. Again, I was looking for new perspectives. I was not at all excluding anybody in terms of what they can bring. I got calls from others that were on the other side saying the same thing. I came to the meeting. I talked up. I brought some data and some information, and I told them why, and they understood. So I get it. So Patty, go ahead.
All right, so I guess I just kind of want to share my understanding why we wanted to move towards the task force. I guess my misunderstanding in terms of this having to be managed so strictly in terms of how we chose people. My understanding was the task force was a necessary and important component in order to analyze, gather data, help educate residents, help get some of the buy-in and understanding to managing the deer, no matter what the solution might be and how we arrive at that. Most importantly, having benchmarks. So if we went the route of calling it, we would have the ability to see success, right? I unfortunately, again, I'll say my bad in terms of understanding how this was being set up to be so strict about how folks were chosen, because we went through the exercise of discussing how are we going to choose members? What should we be looking at? Should it be for or against? I shared that from the IDNR representative actually said, you don't necessarily want to focus on that. Your focus should be ensuring that you have people who are going to come with an open mind and address things. But given the fact that we're not all necessarily experts on coming up with this commission and understanding how to solicit some of that, we took the time to discuss the application and what kind of questions we should have and what sort of answers that would solicit, right? More often than not, when you think about deciding things like this, think about even in terms of a work setting when people are trying to hire folks. Typically, you'd like more, not less, in terms of discussing options to make sure you're getting the best makeup of things. I'm not necessarily disputing at all or questioning in any way. I am grateful for the 30 folks who signed up to be on our commission. That's awesome. But we clearly had the conversation that we wanted to get a sense from people where they're coming with things, their answers to the various questions. And I will say, I personally was not of the understanding that I would have not had the access of looking at all the applications. And it's not to question your judgment. It's for the very fact of already we're still talking about what is the makeup of this group need to look like? What should we be considering in terms of making those decisions? And because this is not something we always do, this is the benefit of always having these dynamic discussions, because there are things that come out of that conversation that help us improve the process, right? So for me personally, when I saw the list that came out, it wasn't specifically because I had specific concerns that I'd say, oh no, not this person or not that person. It's when I went through the exercise to see where people were located, it kind of dawned on me that does kind of make a difference. And unfortunately, that wasn't necessarily a part of the conversation, so I appreciate that, well, we didn't say it should be in North. Well, again, it's hard for us to be thinking through every aspect of what makes sense for this commission, right? My reasoning for saying I thought we should have broader representation throughout the community is that because I believe the task force is a big part of that is to help educate and inform residents and have the conversations and bring experiences from around the community. Having that represented at this task force would be beneficial, because obviously the folks at the north end of town are going to have different lived experiences. For as small as we are geographically, it's still going to be a little bit different than the south. So it's not a matter of north or south, it's a matter of when we're having the conversations to help guide us, we have the ability to have people throughout town be able to provide anecdotal information that they're getting from their neighbors and friends. The other added benefit is when we go to the survey and we're getting responses and we can recognize, we're not really hearing folks from this area of town. Again, having a broader voice at the table means we have a broader ambassador in terms of folks saying, hey, you know what? We need to get some more applications from our area, talking to friends and neighbors to bring that on. So again, it's not a matter of trying to question judgment, or it's a matter of, can we all look at the applications, get a sense of what makes sense based on responses, based on how we can have the most best robust conversation through the working course of the commission. Not again to say other folks can't be a part of it, and I absolutely hope that anyone and everyone continues to be engaged and part of this process, because at the end of the day, this is what we're going to need depending on what decisions we come up with. And even to have successful solutions outside of calling, we need community participation to help foster that, right? So it didn't need to be difficult at all. And my intention of wanting to facilitate this task force and wanting to facilitate a good representation on the committee was just, as Katie is saying, ensure that people feel comfortable with the process that's been followed and that we're getting this right.
All right.
What you just described, Patty, is exactly what we just went through over the last however many board meetings, okay? What you just described is citizens and residents coming up, explaining that they have an issue with something that we're doing, and frankly convinced us to take a step back and create this task force, okay? That's what you just described that you want this commission to be. So whether there's 11 people on it, 13 people on it, those individuals are still going to come in and they're still going to bring their information, and they're going to, as I said to one of the residents on the first conversation I had with him on this subject, is bring your business case in, okay? Because businesses there is a lot of consensus in businesses, but it can't be, 1,000 people trying to make the decision, okay? So the smaller group is going to lead, and they're going to lead the discussion. They're going to take the information that's given from the residents, and they're going to form the decisions. Again, I think, one of the questions on here is, are you open-minded? Everybody's open-minded. We live in a very well-educated community. So, believe it or not, I think people are going to come in, they're going to hear the things that the residents have to say, and you're going to make some decisions at the end of the day. And that's, again, it's the same process we went through. It's not the 11 people that are going to sit at this table that are going to make all the decisions. They're going to take the input from the residents. And I hope that's the way it goes.
I don't disagree with you, and I do hope that everybody who comes comes with that realization. But in terms of even the comment as far as time, Trustee Karji and I talked in terms of when we're setting expectations for the commission itself.
It's a committee.
Committee.
Yeah, sorry, I just don't.
The group that we're
The
going
group.
to task with this information. Again, I see this as being a working group, just like the Sustainability Commission, where they have folks that work on various topics that they research and bring back information. I expect that people on this committee are going to be doing the same thing. I have already been looking at all sorts of information and things that I want people to be reading and preparing themselves as part of the commission. So again, because I don't know a lot of these folks, I don't necessarily know what they understand and try to be a part of. I'm okay with that, and I would hope that would be the case. So in terms of where we are right now, but to Trustee Brennan's comments and to ones I raised myself in terms of feeling like there is a value to have.
That's the most. There's a few on Bonnie Bray, a few obviously on Monroe, and some on the south end. But I would say the 40%, maybe 50% are clustered in that area: Thatcher, Keystone, Forest. Okay, my point is that, like I think maybe you said, Bob, if we were going to make that a criteria, then we should have said it, because then it gives expectations to the applicant that, okay, maybe this is not something for me, or maybe it is something for me. And I'm not saying, but I think we have a good representation, and we could have it better. Sure, it could always be better. It could always be better.
Well, and again, as I said, we tried as we could with that dialogue,
I totally agree.
and obviously arbitrarily pulled out a number even in terms of what we thought was going to. So, I mean, to even come back now and say, well, we didn't say that, was like, again, this is a process. We should be able to evolve in this process.
No, and that's not a criticism of anybody around this. None, zero. What I was trying to, we have to give expectations to our residents. That's all. So, you're right. It's a process. Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't, and sometimes we have to restart. I get that, but I'm just saying, when we do have an application like that and an announcement and things, we're giving our residents an expectation. And right or wrong, bad or good, that's what we're doing. And 30 applicants came and said, hey, I want to help. I think that's great.
Have you notified all 30?
No,
one way or the other?
I only notified the 11, and I did talk to a few that were not, just because they called me or
Said they
emailed
reached
me.
out to you. Are
They
you
reached out
planning
me.
to reach out to
The others? Yeah,
Yeah.
when I have time. Of course I would. And I would like to have a conversation with those that did not get appointed. Right. I typically, what I do on all of my appointments is I always reach out to the people that or email if there's, like, this was a time crunch, so I did it mostly electronically. But I always talk. These guys know when I do, and I think Katie even knows this, and you know this as a former chair, I always call the person and make sure they're willing to be part of in this case, the commission. They're willing to do the work, and because sometimes somebody puts an application in and they have a work change, so their life changes. So it's always important to kind of check in, and I do that. So.
Well, I think that you got some notes from me earlier this week, and so they have the same sentiments as a couple of the people who have spoken, a couple of the trustees. I do think the possibility of adding 2 people because of optics, not whether you intended or not, is probably a good solution to help
Optics
with this.
of what? Not picking.
Of having this not be necessarily balanced. So,
But what's balance? Let's talk through that, because
Sure.
Please.
Yeah. So I think that when you have a group of residents who did do so much work on this and brought to the table a lot of the information when those that applied from that group were not included, that there may feel, and we've heard, and I've heard from other residents that did not seem fair. So,
but I want to expand that because that's really the essence of the issue: is what is fair? Is it fair for the 11 that got? Is it unfair for the 11 that got picked? So who on the 11?
Yeah.
And let's say we added 2. It doesn't matter what we add, but we got to explain it to that. It wasn't fair. You 11. And so therefore we have to add 2, which I'm completely okay with. But I just, it's a little bit of a slippery slope because I think all 11 were fairly picked. And I will say that all 11 were fairly picked. They were consciously picked for what I said before. 2 of them were picked because of the public health thing, and I thought that they could really have a nice, one was opposing, one was for. All the other ones, I think Bob said it, didn't show up. I mean, it not because they weren't invited and not because they didn't want it. Is that, okay, now that the application is out there, now the issue is out there, I want to help.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is not that they weren't fairly picked, but that there is an optics of that. And for their...
But they're not, they don't have that optics. That's
but
just
the
what
community, the community.
I don't think so. I've talked to 25 people. That's not, I did. I mean, there's, they don't have it. No, not those 25. I mean, roughly 25 people across River Forest that they don't believe that the optics are bad. Now, I'm not suggesting that we don't do this. I'm just saying let's not create this problem that we have. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people on this. So, I mean, I don't believe the optics are bad, but,
So what's the criteria? So I heard a lot of geography. So are we going to, if we're going to pick 2 people, we're going to pick them from a certain part of town? Is that I'm just trying to understand, who the 2 are going to be. Because if we put 2 more people that are in the northwest section of town, we already heard this evening that that's a problem. So if we're going to do this, is it geography? Is it knowledge? Is it amount of time spent coming to these meetings and presenting information? I'd like to know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, we should talk about that, what that looks like. And I guess I'd like to hear from the trustees who are going to be chairing the committee on what their interests are in that.
You're last.
Kathy's not here now, but I guess I should apologize to her because I was the one that suggested that we extend the date to the 18th. Patty had originally proposed the 14th. My thinking, giving people the President's Day weekend. I didn't realize, I guess I didn't think, would be a better way to put it, about the board meeting and the fact that Kathy would only have a day and a half to review the application. So that's on me, and I do apologize, even though she's not here. Well, but you'd want a complete list before you started making decisions. At least I would. But there's that. I guess, again, I'm kind of disappointed because we're all prejudging people most of us don't even know. I think that at the end of the day, the product of the committee, at least it's my hope, will be something that's acceptable. Again, I come to this from the perspective, much like Rez, that this is sort of a binary issue. There are people that, no matter what, don't feel as though property damage to someone's home is worth killing deer. And there are people that think that the property damage to their home is, I mean, that's just one aspect of this, but I just don't see nuance in this question. And so I'm all with you, Patty, that we will look for other solutions, non-lethal solutions, but I still think that whichever side prevails in this, there's going to be a significant number of disgruntled residents no matter what we do. So this is going to always be an emotional issue, and there's nothing that this committee can do to breach that gap, in my view. We can do our best, but I think there will ultimately be people, not half and half, but there's going to be a segment of the population that's going to be in favor of whatever we propose and a segment that's going to be opposed to it. It's unfortunately the nature of this sort of issue because anyway, so I guess what I'm looking for is people that, as Patty has said, I think the most important criterion is people that are willing to work. That, and I think the people that I know, at least, that are on the committee, are willing to do the job that we need to do. And so I don't know that anyone, strike that. So I guess that's, for me, that's the criterion that's most important. That people are willing to work and listen, and everyone has said that they're willing to do that. So,
Okay, can I ask a question to the co-chairs here? Are you guys okay with adding 2 people on?
Yeah.
I'm
I am.
okay with that. I do have a concern about 30. 30 becomes...
No, I was
No,
teasing
no,
on
no.
that.
Okay, yeah, she was
Just
yeah.
just like.
Okay,
they're-
I'm just trying to move this along.
No, 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 no.
So, so
and
we're
that's-
okay with 2 now.
Well, Russ, let me
Oh, okay, I'm
just because I was going to kind of round it up.
Okay.
I think 2's been talked about. Again, I say 30, but truthfully, probably should be 30. The optics is going to get right.
Okay.
But it's going to be 2, and so I'm fine with 2. But I think where you're going, and I would like you to continue that conversation, is what 2 would you like? Where areas that it would want to come from or persons involved. I really don't. I really want to make this work. So.
Katie.
When you were stepping out of the room, we were
Yes,
talking
I'm
about
sorry.
that. again. So we have to eliminate people from the northwest section of town. So that seems to be an issue. So let's
Okay.
let's figure out what that looks like.
Okay.
beyond that. So do we start at Harlem Avenue and work our way
Well, I don't think
west, or do we start at
here.
North
I
Avenue and
mean,
work
if you
our way
say the south end, I mean, I could pick. I mean, do you want to debate the people? I mean, I would not recommend that. I think that would be not appropriate to talk.
But it's an issue.
No, but I mean, talk about the people. If you tell me that you wanted in that area 2 people, okay. You know, I'll bring forth 2 people in that area. I mean, just give me some direction. Again, I'm not trying to be at all obstinate. I'm not trying to be dictatorial. I'm just trying to get this work done.
Well, if you're looking for direction, I would request that one of the 2 people be someone from the group of residents who has worked so hard to enlighten this board and impact this board's decision to create the task force. And if
Well,
you're
we have
looking for
several.
and if you're looking for hardworking people, I think these are hardworking people. I'm not going to give you a name, but I don't think we should discuss names here.
Yeah.
But that's the direction that I would propose.
Right. I'm just saying there's several though. You would acknowledge that several people have given direction and given information. Would you acknowledge that at least?
That are on the, that you slate?
No, no, that are not.
No.
What I'm saying is that you're saying that they have helped with understanding and the direction of the task force.
What I'm
producing a lot of
specifically
research,
answering the question that Rez asked of the 2 people. What's the direction? You asked for direction. That's the direction I'm saying. I would ask that one of the slots be filled with someone in the group that I identified.
Well, isn't the first question is should we add 2 people?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think
thought we
it's
already
what we've
agreed
all
to that.
agreed to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we
So
agreed to that.
I want to make sure because Katie, there are several in that group.
I don't think it's appropriate to discuss
I'm not
names of
asking you,
residents.
I just want to
at
make
this-
you acknowledge that there are several.
I do acknowledge that. In which group? What?
In the group that has helped us, part of the task force, as you said, has been instrumental in driving the need for a task force.
Are you including some of the other people that you've already
Yeah,
selected?
Sure. No. I'm saying those that are not been selected.
Because
What-
we're not naming names, it's very
No, I'm
hard
not saying.
to.
Katie, okay.
Is the geographic on the 1200 block of Monroe? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm trying to narrow this.
We don't know.
down
I
to
don't
get
even
to-
want. No, guys. That's
Well-
insane. I don't want to know that. I just wanted acknowledgement that there are several, just not 1 or 2, several people that have provided that, and it sounds like you've acknowledged that. That's all. I'm not asking you names. I'm not asking for anything. I just need some acknowledgement because
Okay.
that's where I think we're
Yeah.
getting off a little bit. So it sounds like you acknowledged it. That's fine. I think.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
the same list.
Yeah. All right. So what's on the? So we've agreed to. We've said we'll pick one that has been in the conversations since day one. What else?
So does that mean we're going to go back and look at the attendees who?
No. What I'd like to.
Hang on.
Okay.
If that's the
I know.
criteria, let's go back and look at the list of the attendees at the June
Well,
meeting
that's what I
who
was
came
trying to
out-
get.
Right, who came out and spoke.
Patty
like,
and Katie laughed
They gave
at
their.
me, but I was trying to get. Yeah, you were. I was trying to get
So
so
is
that
it-
we don't go back
Right.
and start another issue. I'm trying
Right.
to get what you're thinking, and if you're
Okay.
saying, you acknowledge that there's several, We want the person that you believe is the best person that's provided the most information to us to form a task force. That's what your thoughts are. I don't want to put words in. I'm just trying to understand. And I assume that
Okay.
you are all in agreement that that's what we want to do for one of the two.
What's that?
Okay.
See, that's what I'm saying. We're not even in agreement as a group.
Would it be possible for after this meeting, in the next couple of days, for you and Tom and Patty to meet and discuss and no?
Because that three
sorry.
board members trigger
Yeah,
me.
it's gonna be open. So, yeah.
Oh, that's true
Yeah,
too.
But then on
Here,
that-
I don't want to
that
make
one,
this
the place
difficult. I
can't
just
do
want to
it.
make sure
Right,
that
exactly.
the trustees
Right.
understand what we're,
Okay.
here. I first think we've got a motion on the table to move on that. I think we should agree to this and then agree to bring to the next board meeting 2 additional seats on this board, on this committee. And I'm still gonna pick them and I want to get it right. So that you are all happy with what I picked. And I'm, looking at you a little bit, Erica, because I know you were concerned about east versus west, which I never thought about
Only
east
3
west.
blocks west of Harlem.
I mean, there's only 8 blocks between, but
Right.
okay. And now we were talking about north, south. We possibly wanted the south. Now we're talking about somebody. I just want to get this right. So. What should?
Is this going to preclude the committee from meeting on their?
No, I think we vote on this.
No, but ideally, the concern I have is then whoever the 2 additional members are going to be a meeting behind potentially, because the meeting's Wednesday and we won't have even named them yet.
Be ideal
But-
for them to be.
But you have issues with scheduling. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Well, the challenge we have is the
No, so right. I mean, Tom's right in terms
Right.
that ideally
So
we
our
would
next
like.
our next board meeting is
March 9th.
9th. So we'll
March 9th.
So, but we'll bring the 2 names. I'll bring the 2 names on March
Can we
9th.
move it to the 30th?
No. That's the second one.
That's the second. Right, March 30th.
And I think too, to your point, Kathy, from before that,
Yes, but I thought we had one meeting in
other
March.
people who have
Okay.
applied,
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Please. Okay,
that
trustee.
other people who have applied, who might be named later, could attend the Wednesday meeting as just community members, so they are up to speed.
You mean the
as it
2
were.
that might get?
No.
I'm sorry. I missed that because
that people who weren't initially on your set of 11 people, we could offer up to them to come to the Wednesday meeting as
yes,
as
absolutely.
community members.
Yes.
And then if they are chosen,
Yes.
then they are up to speed.
Yes.
on what happened.
Absolutely, and thank you. And I do that. I'm inviting everybody, anybody that's listening, anybody that's will hear this, that they're all invited to the meeting
So
on
the
the
meeting
26th.
could go forward, and presumably no one would be behind.
Correct.
Well,
Assuming, if they all show up.
If they, particularly the 2 that
well,
get
but
chosen.
the problem is we're not going to know who those are.
No, I know that, but if they all go, then I'm assuming then.
All right. Well, then we'll just have to assume that that's going to work. All right. So I just want to get some direction. We got 2, and where would the 2 come from?
Okay.
How about Patty and I discuss this and then we can get back to you?
I like that idea. Because I
Say that again.
You and I can discuss this without Kathy, and then one of us can
call me.
confirm
Discuss
with her.
who we think the 2 should be.
Where they should be, and not who, but
Criteria.
the criteria.
Yeah.
And so is anybody on?
And then we may end up talking about that.
Will anybody on Wednesday after they read the Wednesday Journal to see that we're going to add people want to apply? And do we need to open it back up?
No,
again?
because we're going to take
No,
the 2
because
from
we had a
the
deadline
current.
of applications and
Just good question though, but you're right.
Okay.
Just from the, I agree, just from the applicant.
I mean, yeah, and I mean here, even if you want to discuss the people, that's fine. I just
Okay.
think we just got to be careful with that. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at. So we do have a motion on the table and a second. So I'd like to take the vote on the motion, knowing that with the caveat that we are going to also bring up 2 additional people for a vote at our next board meeting.
So I have an issue.
Yep.
Okay. So my issue is.
Use your microphone, please.
Use your microphone.
My issue is I want to vote for this, but I don't want to vote for the 2 extra. So how do we do that?
Well, that won't
Right,
come.
so
that caveat is not something that's in the motion. It just
Right.
I'm just giving it to the audience that will come at the next board meeting.
Right. The motion before the board is to give advice and consent to the 13 appointments per the motion made by Trustee Kargi, seconded by Trustee O'Connell. A resolution will be brought forward at the March 9th meeting, March 9th meeting, to amend the resolution creating the commission or committee to increase the number from 13 to 15, along with
No.
11 to
I'm
13.
sorry, 11 to, well,
Well,
it's
the total
13. No,
number.
there's
Oh,
13 members.
13 to 15, because you
Do
two.
15 members.
Sorry.
Along with the appointment of the 2 additional members
That's at next meeting.
at the next board meeting,
Let's
correct?
just stay with the motion we have.
Right, I was just telling them what the action items were.
All right. Is that clear? Okay. All right. All right.
I'm a little now you've confused me, Bob. So
Okay. Ask it, Katie.
So Bob is going to take is
Let her ask the question.
to help
Well,
me
I don't
out.
know what you're
Help me out.
confused about.
so there'll be an up and down vote tonight on the 11 in front of you, the 13 including the trustees, and then that's something Trustee O'Connell appears that he would vote in the affirmative for. At the March 9th meeting, there will be an amendment to that resolution, adding 2 people, at which point I suspect Trustee O'Connell will be voting in the negative because he doesn't want the committee to be extended.
A pretty good guess.
Okay. Is that clear, Katie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Trying to help.
Okay. Third time's a charm. All right.
So,
Okay, so take the vote, unless there's another comment. Please, go take the vote. Yep.
well, I guess part of my concern now, knowing that you're telling us your vote already, somewhere along the line, I had a confusion of dates. I was of the understanding that we only had one March meeting originally scheduled. That was changed from the 23rd to the 30th.
Yeah, we have a regular scheduled one on the 7th.
Right, but I thought when I was planning my travel arrangements that there
It was always
wasn't
the 7th. It was the
Okay, so
March 9th.
I'll admit that
March
it's my
9th.
I'm not
Can't you
I'm
call
not
in, Penny?
blaming anybody.
No.
But
call in?
I'm gonna be gone.
It's gonna be on vacation.
Right. So
So
there's
knowing we already have one no vote now.
That's right. I'll vote yes. So, all right. Let's.
But Patty, but is
I'll vote yes.
just
We
wondering,
cannot vote now, right?
No, we're gonna
Right.
vote for
Because
this.
there's no motion, but an inclination.
Not on the
could
agenda.
Patty call in if she chose to?
If
would,
she's
would
out of-
vacation be a basis for?
No,
No.
So we just said.
you have to be out of town for work or
All right.
Bill.
emergency. Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm gonna vote. So go ahead and take the vote, please.
Choice.
Trustee Bachner,
Yes.
Trustee Kargi,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez,
Yes.
Trustee Brennan,
No.
Trustee Hennick,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Okay. Very
Motion
good.
passed.
And Patty, no worries. We're gonna bring it back on the 9th, and we'll get it passed. Okay. So let's move on. Interesting enough, we have another committee that we want to form. Hopefully, it's not going to be as controversial because I got Helen Kwan here, our most favorite resident. That's anyway. I need a motion and then a second, and I'll ask Trustee Vasquez to go through this. But this is a very exciting committee.
I move that we approve a resolution establishing an age-friendly advisory ad hoc committee.
I second.
Yeah.
Do you want a second?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I wanted to make the motion.
Ah! I withdraw my motion.
Hey.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. No, okay.
Sorry.
No. It's not necessary. It's not necessary.
Yeah, it's
Oh, it is? Erica.
Eric. That's
Erica
fine.
second.
Before I did, I asked her if you wanted.
No. Thank you, but no, thank you. No, that's fine. It's okay.
Okay,
All right.
so we've got Trustee Brennan and Trustee Bachner. Okay, so Russ and I have been doing this for a long time. I'm going to let Russ kind of explain what this is, and we've talked about it on several occasions over the last several months, and so we're kind of excited about this. So go ahead, Russ.
Okay. As you may recall, River Forest, we were recognized as dementia friendly, very first village in Illinois to do that. But as part of that, we also talked about applying for to be accepted as an age-friendly community, which is more expansive than being just recognized as dementia-friendly. And so there's an application we go through the AARP network to be recognized. And I will say, I will give a lot of credit to Sarah for working with me, or maybe I was working for her because she was really putting a lot of the work together. And so she did a fantastic job of putting together and helping me put together the information for the application that was submitted to the AARP. And I think we reported out that we were accepted, and that was part of step one. And now we're heading into step two, which is really to be doing the investigative part and the planning phase of this age-friendly community process. We're supposed to be, as part of this, when we met with the AARP rep, indicating that there's like a need assessment that we're going to be putting together, meeting with a number of constituents, both, elected officials, the school districts, the township, and in fact, we are working in partnership with Carlos Sloan from the River Forest Township. We're also communicating with the Oak Park Township as well, since they have similar issues regarding age-friendly and seniors. And so it's going to be a lot of that collaboration of collecting a lot of information to see what are the needs of our seniors for River Forest. And as part of our village, we're going to be focusing on our seniors in this village. That doesn't mean that we won't be working with other villages nearby on these issues. It just means when it comes to the particular task force that's being presented to this board today will be made up of River Forest residents who will be doing the communications and outreach and working on this phase two. Eventually, we're going to get to step three. And by the way, phase two is projected 1-2 years, maybe 3 if it's needed. I'm being optimistic, and I think we'll be able to get it done in two years, since based on the size of our village and based on the progress we have made with other efforts in this area. And so with that, I'm hoping that I will get your support to approve this resolution and create this advisory committee. I know also, besides Helen Kwan, who has been, thank you, has been also a great member of our Dementia Friendly River Forest group, and also looks like we're working with Oak Park, giving input there as well. But we also have another great person, Lydia Manning, who is from Concordia University, who's been really helpful not only in guiding us, but also pretty well versed in a lot of these issues. So it's terrific that we have her, and she already expressed an interest in participating in this advisory committee. So I'm looking forward to working with her as well. So unless there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Rez, I think this is so wonderful. I'm very excited about this, and thank you for your work. Thank you, Helen, and everybody else who's been working on this. Just one thing that you mentioned that I'm curious about, you said that you'd be working with schools. It sounds like you've been working with Concordia. When you say schools, do you mean for like school children, or do you mean schools like higher ed with research, or do you have a sense of?
Yes.
And how does that look like with like elementary schools or high schools?
And in terms of like the elementary and the high school as well, there's a particular phase called social interaction. So we are we'll be looking at recruiting youth and how the youth can participate in activities that involve seniors. For example, we've seen some other places activities where the seniors who are maybe retired but still have a lot of value, a lot of knowledge, and they can tutor some of our high school kids, sometimes even some of the elementary kids. We also have the reverse, where the youth actually meet, socialize with our seniors. And with that comes some development of some respect for our seniors, where right now, I should say, there are some youth who just focus on the little iPads and iPhones and really don't interact with seniors. And so we want to try to change that. There's a positive relationship going in both directions.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of what we're looking at.
Both of those are wonderful. I think about people who sometimes, families who maybe can't afford tutors, but would like to have access to tutors. And this sounds like an amazing opportunity to be able to connect those two. I know from having a child that went to Willard, they have a wonderful day, and I can't remember what the day is, but they the whole school each grade takes different responsibilities, and it's basically like Thank Your Seniors Day.
Okay.
And seniors come in and they sing a song and they prepare them, I think, like a lunch or something. And so great to hear that will just be added upon with the rest of the school district.
And there might be additional input we'll receive of other suggested activities or participations and feedback that we want from them during this process as well.
Yeah,
So-
in fact, I think that's one of kind of the ARP kind of qualifications, the intergenerational work and what the community has done to create more intergenerational. So that's kind of, you're right, that's kind of the fun part, right?
Right.
That's good stuff.
So congratulations. I know it's been a lot of work with this. So I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So as kind of a starting off platform, excuse me, will this be kind of working with the senior program in the township, given that that's already in place? So is that kind of the start,
Absolutely.
the jumping off point or jumping in point?
No, and in fact, that's a good point. We're not going to try to overlap what other people are doing.
Right.
What we're trying to do is complement and coordinate, so we're not doing the same thing other people are doing. And so if we can provide other services, and part of this will be, even though obviously this committee will be focused or members of River Forest, we have been working with Oak Park and maybe possibly also with some of our neighboring villages on some of these activities as well. So we're not just going to be focused on River Forest. We will be making sure our residents and seniors are going to be taken care of, but this may be expanding partnerships with other neighboring villages as well. Okay.
Yeah, great point. In
Yeah.
fact, Carla and Kathleen Roach sent me an email and a text saying that they support this and they're really, they see this as complementary to the work that the township's doing. And in fact, they've been hand in hand with us along the lines as we were talking about ARP and creating this committee. So it's
And in
good.
fact, another example is our dementia-friendly River Forest group has been meeting with Oak Park, the township as well, so that they can complement and try to work together as well. So that's another example of the partnerships we've been doing.
And we are going to add, dementia-friendly stuff to
Correct.
this.
Correct.
Right.
This is the more global picture,
right.
and so dementia-friendly, I'm not saying will be usurped,
Right.
but it
Right.
will encompass services for them as well.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Russ has done a lot of work. Okay, great. Well, then I'd ask the clerk to take the vote.
Trustee Kargi.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Absolutely.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Motion
Great.
passed.
All right, so moving on, we've got recommendations regarding building zoning inspector position. So I would need a motion and a second to have staff talk about this. Please.
Move to authorize staff to modify the position of building and zoning inspector from semi-full-time to full-time.
Second.
Okay. All right, so I'll let
Yeah, Lisa will walk you through this discussion just to give you kind of a high-level overview. The building department, along with our water utility, provide two what I'll call enterprise type business touch points with our customers. And so building department activity in the village of River Forest continues to be very healthy, which is good. People are making investments into River Forest. And we're always looking at ways to improve how we provide those services. And so we had a retirement earlier this year. We brought in a third-party consultant, Mike D'Onofrio from GovHR. Mike is in the audience tonight as our subject matter expert, so if there are questions that we can't answer, he can address those for us. Mike's professional experience is he was the longtime community development director for the village of Winnetka, and then also had worked in the city of Des Plaines as well, so comes with a lot of knowledge. So we asked him to basically provide an analysis and an overview of how we're providing the building department service, because it is an important service, and then provide a series of recommendations back to us that we could then ultimately share with you. I think the good news is we have a good, strong building department, but at the same time, we can always be better, and this was an opportunity with some natural attrition to go and have that analysis. So with that, as you know, Lisa has many hats, one of which is overseeing the building department, so I will turn it over to her.
All right. Well, let me see. Eric covered a lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. So let me just kind of hone in on what we're talking about here and the reason why we're coming to a recommendation. You know, we are really conservative when it comes to adding staff. We try to keep those costs low while still meeting the organizational challenges. And so we don't take the decision to add a full-time employee or even just increase a position to full-time very lightly, because we're very sensitive to the additional costs that those bring to the organization. But without belaboring some of the points that were raised in the packet, I just wanted to point out a couple things. You know, obviously your packet includes a lot of data and some performance measures, just kind of walking you through some of the history of the building department and what we've done over time. And when the building and zoning inspector position was full-time, when that became vacant, we moved to a part-time code enforcement position. And over time, based on needs, customer service needs, and also the building department needs, we increased that position a little bit to semi-full-time. So it went from about 20 to 24 hours to 30 hours. We invested in some additional training to provide some additional in-house resources. And what you see is that it's borne out in the data that really did impact a certain group of projects and plan review times for those projects. And we're better meeting our goals, although we're not quite there, but we're closer to meeting our goals in that area than we are in the big projects, the single family homes, the commercial projects, the large remodeling and home addition projects. And those are obviously very time sensitive to the resident. But it's also important that we get those plan reviews correct, because the code issues are often substantial, and we want to make sure the integrity of the buildings in the community are solid. So what we are hoping to do with this position, and based on the analysis of where our real pain points are, is to provide some additional services. That extra 10 hours will go a long way. 10 hours per week, will go a long way to meeting customer service demands, providing redundancy and some staff expertise, and really dedicating a position and dedicating resources within our department to shepherding applicants through from beginning to end in the process. We can add technical expertise through the use of code officials through BNF Technical and any other type of building plan review firm that's out there. And so we can do that, but we can also have that in-house while also providing that extra customer service that this person can provide. There are a lot of field inspections, so this is not somebody who's just dedicated to the office all the time. There are a lot of field inspections that go along with this position as well. So you need somebody who has a variety of talents, and customer service is certainly one of them. Often plan reviews are done just, sharing comments back and forth, but having someone in-house who can sit down with applicants, talk with our architects, talk with homeowners, and understand what the process entails and what is needed in order to get their projects going, that's what we're really after when we increase the hours for this position. As Eric said, Mike is here. The memo summarizes the findings in his report and some of the different options that he looked at, as well as his conclusion that this would be the right move at this time. I do want to note it's not necessarily a permanent move. In the event that we have a vacancy in the building official position, when that occurs, we would re-examine all of this again and most likely take a position back down to part-time. So it is seen as not a permanent budget impact.
Would you have a sense, and I know it would just be a guesstimate, when you expect that other position to perhaps retire, the person that's in that role?
I don't have an estimate at this point. Yeah. I don't anticipate it being too far out, though.
So really what you're saying is there's workflow through this position that needs the full-time position. Yeah. Okay.
And could you, so in terms of the front counter backup that this person could perhaps, how would that work logistically as far as his time?
Sure. There are proactive inspections that we do. This position would be responsible for conducting real estate transfer tax inspections, meeting with people in the field for pre-construction consultations, and continuing to do some of the work that the previous incumbent did. But there is a portion of the day, at least half of the day, where they're physically in the building. And so it's not always, because currently if someone comes to the front counter and the permit clerk can't respond to a question if it's very technical in nature, if the building official is otherwise occupied on the phone, already meeting with somebody, or is in the field conducting an inspection, we have nobody to provide that technical expertise. So there would be redundancy between the building official and the building and zoning inspector to do that. So the two of them would tag team that front counter work.
So it's not as if you would necessarily have him block out, say, so much time a day to be available to do that. It's really just in the course of he may be available, he may not.
The goal is to make sure someone is always available, and on a rare exception they wouldn't be, and there'd be some circumstance that would dictate that. But the goal is to have a technical person in-house who can answer resident questions and keep them moving in the right direction.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to take the vote.
But could I just, one more as far as the salary estimates? And you said assuming village pays starting salary. I mean, are we, when you're looking at applicants, is it in terms of trying to be at a level that, I mean, I know that's hard because if there's somebody who looks exemplary.
Oh, yeah, we try to find the best candidate, absolutely. And so we do make general in all of our budgetary allocations for new positions or vacant positions. We just make general assumptions for starting salary, health insurance, benefits, things like that. We assume more of a robust health insurance plan. Correct. So that we're not planning for like
full family coverage.
Yeah, we're not planning for a single and then they come in and get a family. We assume they're going to take family insurance, and we can always then scale that back in terms of that cost.
Okay, and then just last thing, just to clarify to make sure I'm understanding it. So what you're also envisioning that this person's role moving into the position that may retire could be a stepping stone.
Correct. There's advancement potential.
Okay.
Correct.
I thought that's what it was describing.
Which would be used to help advertise and recruit for that position.
Right.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's take the vote, please.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Hennick.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Kargi.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. All right, this is for discussion purposes only. I'll go ahead and let Eric Palm discuss the next item.
Sure. As you know, we have a contract with Safe Speed LLC to handle our automatic traffic law enforcement system, commonly known as red light cameras. That contract expires on July 1st, 2020. Although we could enter into a renewal for that, it's staff recommendation at this point that we go back out to RFP to look for a different vendor. And so that's what we intend to do. So while there's no formal board action tonight, we wanted to be upfront with you in terms of what our intentions are. We will be sending a letter to the current incumbent, letting them know that we do not intend to renew, and we will begin an RFP process in earnest to look for a new vendor.
Eric, so I just have a question.
No, that's fine.
So my question is, I feel like years and years ago, I heard that there weren't any other vendors that did this kind of work, or maybe that was just in state. Do you have a sense of, are there in-state vendors? Like, how does this typically,
So I'm aware of 3 other vendors in the area that have existing contracts in other municipalities.
Okay.
And so is the incumbent not eligible to bid?
I certainly wouldn't say that the incumbent isn't ineligible to bid, but in light of some of the challenges that they are working through, that would be something difficult to overcome.
So do you address that as well with them?
Yes.
Is there any risk that they could just pull, that they could terminate the contract unilaterally? Obviously, we'd have a claim against that, but
The current vendor against us? Yeah, there are.
no. Say once you give notice we weren't going to renew, if they just pulled their equipment out, obviously we'd have a claim against them. But I would like to avoid litigation.
Yeah, I mean, the contract does talk about run-out periods, but it does also provide, I believe, for the contractor to also, just as we have the ability to terminate the agreement if we wanted to, they have that ability as well. So there's nothing legally that we could do to stop them, provided they follow the agreement.
I should say I do think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just concerned about the potential litigation.
Someone raised a point with me, and I wasn't familiar with this. Is the state looking at perhaps not allowing red light cameras in non-home rule?
That could have been me. There's a House bill that's out there, 322, that's considering restricting or prohibiting red light cameras in Cook County.
In
non-home rule
communities.
That's
what I heard.
So
just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, there's that. There's a couple bills out there. There's one that also is asking just for a further study of the program. So where that all shakes out in the state legislature, time will tell. And so we'll continue to monitor those bills to see how those transpire. Just as a general concern, I'm always troubled when our legislators decide to make a distinction between home rule and non-home rule communities in these certain types of legislation. I just find the policy to be discriminatory in action because we're smaller.
I actually think there are two bills pending. I think
might be
the guy from Barrington has one that would include non-home rule or home rule as well. But the advocate for that one was concerned about whether or not they could constitutionally do that.
Got it. And there's also concern too. I think when you're I
think they can.
With a home rule, there's a higher threshold in terms of passage. Yeah, 2/3 for a home rule community.
And I think that you obviously would be looking at this, but any vendor that we go out to bid and get information from, just the fairness in how they determine the red light camera ticketing, I think is something that will be important.
I think a lot of that is legislative, like the amount of money and it's a I think it's because they're all. Is that what you're talking about? Money?
Or like trying to trick, somebody
You mean like
into.
Well, we have you're right. The fees and the fines, the dollar, those are all set by state law.
Yeah.
The ability and one of the attractiveness of the current vendor that we had picked back at that time was it allowed the village full control in terms of who received a ticket and did not receive a ticket and the fine that was associated with that. And so that was what put them ahead of the other vendors at that time. Now, I can't speak to how the other vendors may have changed their model since that time. So we'll obviously through that RFP process, we'll get a better sense of that.
Which fees were you saying are dictated by the state?
What the ticket fee is.
What the ticket fines.
So they're all $100.
Could be. In terms of so on that $100, in terms of how much a municipality gets and how much the company gets?
That's to be negotiated.
Correct. And so that would be part of their RFP responses would be looking at their reputation as a company, their performance, references, things of that nature, and we'll spell all that out ahead of time in a matrix to review that, and then also how their fee structure would be set up.
Is there time to change out the equipment? So we assume it's July of 2020. So is that time frame appropriate?
Yeah, we'll be starting in earnest to do this. So yeah.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that update. So let's move on. I think we're done with the open session. Now we can go into executive session.
If the board wants to, the contract that's before you tonight, what
No,
Jan's
no,
not-
no. I'm like, if you want to. We
Oh.
don't want to do anything.
She wants to go home.
Oh.
Jan's like, kick me out.
Executive session.
Well, regardless, it could be. I mean, we've negotiated a contract within the authority that the board has given us. Lisa and her team, once again, have done a fantastic job. The public works staff
So
was
your
great.
question is, do you want to go in so he
If-
can explain it, or do
or
you
if
want to
there-
just go ahead and vote on it?
If you have specific, I mean, I think we could answer many of them in open session, but if you felt that there were specific sensitive questions that required us to go into executive session, we're happy to do that.
Fine.
Or we're happy to address that.
What is the board's desire?
I didn't see anything in there that would be,
Right.
in my opinion, would warrant executive session.
Okay, Bob? Yep, yep, Erica?
Yep.
Patty? Nope. All right, so then why don't we go ahead and get a motion and a second on item number 11?
Okay, move to ratify the collective bargaining agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, Public Works, for May 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2022.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Hearing no further questions or comments on this, and Russ is going to die on us? You okay?
Yeah, no reflection on the.
It sounds like what happened to your firefighter.
Yeah.
Worked too hard.
Where's my paramedic? Here.
Oh my God. All right.
It's
So
the
while
aging
we were
process.
trying to resuscitate Russ over there, let's go ahead and take the vote. Please.
Trustee Brennan,
Yes.
Trustee Hennick,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell,
Yes.
Trustee Bachner,
Yes.
Trustee Kargi,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn. Right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Very good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Being adjourned at 9:50.
All right.
It's